Chapter 5:34. The streets of Whiteleaf City were bustling with activity. As night fell, thousands of lanterns lit up the streets. Cultivators, mercenaries, and noble families from all over the continent appeared in Whiteleaf Forest. Most of them had come for the Forest of Heavenly Tomes. After all, whoever obtained a Heavenly Tomes might be able to become a marquis in the Iha Kingdom or the Empire. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin entered the city dressed as hunters. After finding an inn to stay in, they bought a new set of clothing. Qin Yin wore a plain dress embroidered with golden flowery patterns. Paired with her natural beauty, she looked like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Together with a robe made of animal hide, she looked like a young lady from a wealthy family. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, wore a green robe and carried a long sword on his back. He disguised himself as a bodyguard and even bought a fake beard to stick to his chin. When Lin Muyu grew a beard, Qin Yin couldn't help but smile at his appearance. Soon after, Lin Muyu prepared a mole for Qin Yin. It had to make her look different from the one on the wanted posters. In the end, Qin Yin stuck this mole below her eye. It looked like a tear-shaped mole, but after it was stuck, it made her look even more lovely. As expected, a superb skill like makeup was popular in any plane. At night, they sat by the window of the inn and ate dinner, tasting the unique flavor of Whiteleaf City's wine. A waiter served them a pot of fragrant wine and said, "This is our inn's specialty, 100 Leaves wine. Please enjoy." As he spoke, the waiter looked at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's swords and couldn't help but ask, "Are the two of you also going to Whiteleaf Forest to find that Forest of Heavenly Tomes?" "What's wrong?" Qin Yin asked. The waiter lowered his voice and said, "If the two of you really want to go to the Whiteleaf's Forest, I advise you not to go. A few days ago, I heard that the second son of the Northern Qi Kingdom's capital, Bailing City, brought a group of people into the Whiteleaf's Forest and was killed by a mysterious person. Not a single one of the hundreds of people he brought with him survived, including many experts and the Iha Kingdom's army." Lin Muyu pretended to be shocked. "The second son of Northern Qi is dead? When did you get the news?" "About 6 or 7 days ago, some mercenaries returned from the Whiteleaf's Forest with the body of Northern Qi's second son, Huan. It is said that Northern Qi is furious and has mobilized thousands of men from the capital to enter the Whiteleaf's Forest to avenge the second son." Qin Yin smiled. "It's getting more and more lively." The waiter said, "Miss and sir, if you do not insist on entering the Whiteleaf's Forest, I advise you to give up. Right now, the Whiteleaf's Forest is like a pot of hot soup. Most ants that crawl in will be scalded to death. Besides, I heard that there are ancient beasts guarding the treasures in the Whiteleaf's Forest. It's too scary." Lin Muyu said, "Thank you for your kind intentions. In that case, my lady and I will not enter the Whiteleaf's Forest." "Okay, then I will go." "Thank you." Lin Muyu raised her head and glanced at Qin Yin. She could read the amusement in Qin Yin's eyes. The Whiteleaf's Forest was indeed dangerous, but not to that degree. At that moment, a few noblemen sitting at the table next to them began to chat. One of them, wearing a Sao red brocade robe, smiled and said, "These days, everyone is busy going to the Whiteleaf's Forest. Not many people have paid attention to what's happening in Jianghu City." "What's happening?" asked another nobleman in a green brocade robe. "Isn't that obvious?" The nobleman in the black brocade robe said, "In order to recruit talents, the Marquis of Xiang, Man Ning, has decided to hold a Heavenly Tome Conference in Jianghu City 3 days from now. There will be a total of 10,000 competition seats. Anyone who enters will have to register. Within 2 hours, the person who writes the highest grade of Heavenly Tome Conference will be the champion of the conference. It is said that the champion will receive 8 million Jinin coins on the spot. He will also have the chance to marry the Marquis of Xiang's youngest daughter, Man Tingfang." Man Tingfang? The nobleman in the green brocade robe could not hold back and said excitedly, "I heard that Man Tingfang is a rare beauty in Jianghu City. She is 18 years old, and she is good at music, chess, calligraphy, singing, and dancing. She is also very pretty with a slim waist and plump buttocks. She does not resemble her father at all. She has long been known as one of the 4 great beauties of Iha country." I wonder which family's nobleman has the fortune to marry Miss Man Tingfong. The nobleman in the red brocade robe raised his paper fan and cupped his fists. The White Leaves Forest is filled with arrogant mercenaries and cultivators. With our abilities, even if we enter the White Leaves Forest, we will most likely not gain anything. Why don't we use our travel expenses to buy some weapon embryos and low-grade mysterious gold powder to try our luck in Jianghu City? Who knows, we might become the Marquis' son-in-law. Very well, very well. We will listen to Brother Lu. Let's set off for Jianghu City tomorrow morning. What do you think? Alright. Lin Muyu heard everything from the side and could not help but be tempted. She said with a smile, Xiao Yin, why don't we hurry to Jianghu City and earn some money? It's 8 million Jinin coins. Qin Yin glared at him and said coquettishly, Are you really not aiming for Man Tingfong? Why would I? Lin Muyu held her little hand and said, He ran away after getting the prize money for first place. With Man Ning's appearance, how good can his daughter be? Qin Yin could not help but laugh. Alright then. It's a waste to leave the 8 million Jinin coins in Jianghu City anyway. But the Marquis of Jianghu is really rich. He was awarded 8 million Jinin coins just for getting first place in the Heavenly Tome Conference. He's really rich. That's why we have to make a trip to Jianghu City. We are robbing the rich to help the poor. Is that so? Qin Yin burst into laughter. Her beautiful eyes were like crescent moons. She said with a smile, If Man Ning is rich, then who is poor? Me. Lin Muyu patted her chest and said in a low voice, Xiao Yin should know that I have asked Xiling and the people from the Department of Weaponry to research the magic crystal cannon. It's too expensive. It's not enough without 1 or 200 million Jinin coins. Qin Yin nodded gently. If I didn't know about this, how could I still be the Empress? It's also because of this that I gave you the 10 million Jinin coins from the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. It's just that, your research on the magic crystal cannon has always been kept a secret. I can't directly give it to you from the Ministry of Revenue. Also, this year's harvest is not too good, and expenses are high. The Ministry of Revenue doesn't have much money left. Lin Muyu said angrily, You're still talking. How much money did you spend on the Heavenly Tome Pavilion? If all that money was given to me, I'm afraid the magic crystal cannon would have been completed long ago. Qin Yin pouted. I didn't know that the Heavenly Tome Pavilion would spend so much money. It's all because Grandfather and His Highness the Seven Seas King urged us. However, the Heavenly Tome Pavilion is in charge of the Heavenly Tome inscriptions within the Empire. It's indispensable, so we must spend this money. Yes. Lin Muyu picked up a piece of wild boar meat and put it into his mouth. He chewed for a while and swallowed it with a frown. This bacon's hardness was really unbearable. He looked up at Qin Yin and said, Xiao Yin, you've also comprehended a piece of the Heavenly Tome inscription. If you were given a high-grade tool embryo and mystic gold powder now, how confident are you that you'll be able to form a book? Ah! Qin Yin opened her small mouth. Her intelligent eyes were filled with uncertainty. She hummed and said, The probability of becoming a book is not more than 1 in 1,000. The probability of becoming a heavenly tome is definitely not more than 1 in 100,000. Damn, Xiao Yin, you're too honest. What about Brother Yu? Where's the heavenly tome that you comprehended 4 types of laws? Me. Lin Muyu's mood swayed. He raised his hand and twirled his beard. He pretended to be profound and said with a smile, If you give me high-grade mystic gold powder and a top-grade tool embryo, the probability of becoming a book should be about 20%. However, the probability of becoming a heavenly tome is about the same as yours, about 1 in 100,000. Heavenly tome is too profound and difficult to understand, but the probability of becoming an earthly tome is at least 50%. I wonder if an earthly tome can be exchanged for first place in the Heavenly Tome Conference. If it's a mid-grade earthly tome or above, then it's very possible. Qin Yin pursed her lips and smiled. After all, there are very few people in Iha Kingdom who can write an earthly tome. Huan of Northern Qi is already a well-known figure among the younger generation of scholars. But as you can see, The highest level of heavenly tome that Huan of Northern Qi can write is only a low-grade earthly tome. If brother you can write a mid-grade earthly tome, then this first place is certain to be yours. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. Hurry and eat. After eating, go to sleep. Have a good night's rest. Tomorrow, we'll head to Xiang City. 2 days should be enough time to reach Xiang City. Okay. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Qin Yin went to bed early. Lin Muyu hung the star's sword at her waist. Like the guards, she walked along the corridor of the inn to the rooftop. Using the spirit pulse technique, the strongest aura nearby was Qin Yin's domain. However, she was sound asleep at the moment, so the strength of the aura was not obvious. It was late at night, and there were fewer people on the streets of Whiteleaf City. Only a drunken mercenary and a cultivator were still walking leisurely on the streets, fighting at every turn. Their rough and disturbing roars could be heard in the night sky. What are you looking at? So what if I'm looking at you? Lin Muyu sat on the carved railing and smiled as she watched a few mercenaries fight with clumsy iron swords on the street in the distance. They were very careful, and the speed at which they stabbed their swords was shockingly slow, as if they were afraid of hurting their opponents. With one look, one could tell that they were just a bunch of weaklings showing off their strength. Not long after, a gong sounded, and a group of people dressed in patrolmen's uniforms appeared to maintain law and order. Immediately, a few of the drunk mercenaries were unhappy, and they began to curse that the patrolmen of Iha country were useless, that Marquis Manning was an old fool, and that Qin Yi was a hypocritical person who only cared about profit. Lin Muyu was very happy to hear this. Just like that, he sat on the railing and circulated the qi in his body. He cultivated the Vajra protection divine art and the dragon forging bone remnant scroll, and in the blink of an eye, he entered a dreamland. When he woke up, the sun was already rising. Chapter 5:35. After rushing for 2 days, they finally arrived at Sunset City the day before the Heavenly Tome Conference. However, when Lin Muyu and Qin Yin arrived at Sunset City, they found that it was overcrowded because of the Heavenly Tome Conference. All the inns were already full. Finally, Lin Muyu used her killer move, paying 3 times the room price, and finally checked into a medium-sized inn. At night, they left the inn and went to the local Heavenly Tome materials store to purchase the necessary equipment embryos and spiritual powder for the Heavenly Tome Conference. Sunset City was far more prosperous than Whiteleaf City. For safety's sake, Qin Yin wore a purple cloak, covering her beautiful face under the hood. Only when she raised her head could her beautiful eyes, which were like black gemstones, be seen. Lin Muyu's attire was even more safe. He changed from a handsome young man to a bearded uncle, and no one could recognize him. After entering a material shop at the corner of the street, an extremely fat shopkeeper came forward and said with a smile, "Looking at the elegant and extraordinary attire of the two of you, you must be famous scholars. Our shop has everything you need. As long as you want it, we have it. Please choose for yourselves." Lin Muyu said, "Shopkeeper, what kind of equipment embryos do you have here?" "Equipment embryos?" The shopkeeper chuckled and said, "You found the right place. Our store's equipment embryos can be said to be the most complete and best in Sunset City. We have everything from low-grade equipment embryos to supreme-grade equipment embryos. Let's take a look at the supreme-grade equipment embryos first." "Oh!" The shopkeeper's eyes lit up. He thought to himself that a fat sheep had arrived. People who dared to directly say that they wanted to see supreme-grade equipment embryos must be rich. The bearded man in front of him must be the son of a wealthy family, just that he looked a little rough. "Young master, please take a look. Our store has a total of 2 supreme-grade equipment embryos." The shopkeeper held up a steel knife and a shield. He said, "This knife is made of 10,000-year black iron. The material is first-rate and has abundant spiritual power. It can greatly increase the chances of completing a book. The price is 200,000 Jianghu coins. This shield is made of black iron, and its spiritual power is slightly inferior. The price is 170,000 Jianghu coins." Lin Muyu took the long blade and the shield and touched them lightly with her knuckles. A dang sound echoed continuously. The spiritual power of these two weapon embryos was indeed abundant, but it was definitely not worth such an expensive price. Thinking about it carefully, the star's sword hanging on Lin Muyu's waist was the real peerless weapon embryo. However, he didn't dare to inscribe a heavenly book on the star's sword without 100% confidence. If it didn't become a book, or it became a human book or spiritual book, it would be equivalent to writing something bad, and he would definitely cry to death. Forget it. Lin Muyu put down her sword and shield and said, "Can you show me the high-grade artifact embryo?" The shopkeeper was a little disappointed. He didn't feel good about not being able to scam a big shot. He pointed to the counter at the side and said, "These are all high-grade tool embryos. They are priced between 2,000 and 700 Jianghu coins." Lin Muyu glanced at them and suddenly smiled. "Shopkeeper, tell me directly, which one is the 2,000 Jianghu coins embryo?" The shopkeeper's body trembled. He took out a fine steel wrist guard from the counter and said, "This pair of fine steel wrist guards is made from 10 million Xian steel. It's indestructible. This one only costs 2,000 Jianghu coins." "Alright, I'll take it." Lin Muyu laughed heartily. "Give me some low-grade Xian gold powder too." The shopkeeper was startled. "This sir should also be participating in the Heavenly Book Conference. How can you be so confident that you can complete a book in one go? Why don't you choose a few more weapon embryos? The Heavenly Book Conference only has a time limit, but not a quantity limit. You can inscribe 7 or 8 weapon embryos in 2 hours. Why don't you buy a few more? These 2 days, many people have bought 2-digit weapon embryos in my store. No need." Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "One is enough." Looking at his overflowing confidence and calmness, the shopkeeper couldn't help but tremble. He sighed to himself. "This is 2F** King Stingy." Afterward, he spent a small amount of Xian gold powder. However, it wasn't until after he bought it that Lin Muyu remembered that Northern Qi Huan had actually given him some mid-grade Xian gold powder in his dimensional bag. The few hundred Jianghu coins he had spent earlier had been wasted. Qin Yin watched from the side as Lin Muyu shopped. She couldn't help but sigh. This brother of hers was too good at running a household. He was not just stingy. He was unwilling to spend money that he could avoid. However, he was never stingy when it came to developing the magic crystal cannons and equipping the valiant dragon army. Thinking of this, Qin Yin's heart warmed. After nightfall, Lin Muyu played with the wristband in his hand. He looked at it carefully and made up his mind. This wristband had a very small area for inscribing divine text. He had to reduce the number of words to about 500 words. This also meant that he couldn't inscribe a complete 1,000 words in the divine book. He had to reduce the divine book of the 4 great laws to 500 words or less. Thus, after spending half the night, Lin Muyu had reduced the divine book of the fire laws, "Fire God extinguishes the world," to 500 words. He had removed some long passages and kept some key words. He didn't know if he could make it into a book, so he could only put it together. The next day, he woke up early and checked out of the room with Qin Yin. They led the 2 war horses straight to the Heavenly Tome Conference. The Heavenly Tome Conference was held in the Hall of Heavenly Tome at the side of the Sunset Temple. The Hall of Heavenly Tome was the #1 department of Heavenly Tome in the Swift White Province, personally approved by Commander Qin Yi. It had the same status as the Heavenly Tome Pavilion in the North Ridge Province. The plaza of the Hall of Heavenly Tome was already filled with tens of thousands of tables for the participants to use. When Lin Muyu and Qin Yin rushed to the periphery, they saw a sea of people. Qin Yin was a little worried. "Brother Yu, let's hurry and sign up. Otherwise, the quota will be full." Lin Muyu said, "Let's sign up separately." But Qin Yin took the lead and squeezed into the crowd. He slowly released a little pressure from his body and pushed the surrounding people away, allowing him to successfully reach a group of examiners. After spending 10 Jianghu coins to sign up, he received a bamboo stick with his name and participation number written on it. Of course, the name was written as Lin Yin, a very ordinary name. It was only when Qin Yin came out that Lin Muyu squeezed into the crowd. An examiner raised his head and squinted at him. He asked, "What's your name? What's your identity?" Where are you from? Lin Muyu blurted out. My name is Li Laifu. I'm from the eastern border of the Swift White Province. I'm the Li Residence's protector. Li Residence's protector? The examiner laughed loudly. A mere protector dares to participate in the Heavenly Tome Conference? What a joke! Give me 10 Jianghu coins and I'll write your name on it. Yes. After Lin Muyu handed over the gold coins, the examiner waved his brush and wrote 4 words on it. Li Residence's protector, Li Laifu. Dang 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 dang. The gong sounded noisily, and an examiner yelled at the top of his lungs, the Heavenly Tome Conference is about to begin. Participants, please return to your seats. Those who have completed a book, please come to the main examiner's office to register within 2 hours. 10,000 people were inscribing a heavenly tome together. It was a spectacular sight. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's tables were about 50 meters apart. Through the crowd, Qin Yin smiled sweetly at him. Lin Muyu gave her a thumbs up to encourage her. The materials Qin Yin used were all of the best quality. Logically speaking, she should be able to compete for a place. Marquis Sunset has arrived. A fat figure appeared in the Heavenly Tome Hall's main hall. It was Marquis Sunset Man Ning. Lin Muyu looked at him from afar. Man Ning seemed to be fatter and older, but the cunning gleam in his eyes did not change. Dozens of guards with extraordinary cultivation surrounded Man Ning's fat body. Not far away, the figure of a high-ranking general of the country of nominal peace also appeared. It was Ding Shi. Lin Muyu never thought that she would see Ding Shi here. He wouldn't recognize her, would he? She quickly lowered her cultivation aura to the minimum, then lowered her head and did not look up. Not far away, Qin Yin did the same. It would be strange if Ding Shi could recognize her in the examination hall of tens of thousands of people. Man Ning raised his hand and gestured. Immediately, the main examiner stood up and said loudly, "The competition begins. The time limit is 2 hours." The young masters and ladies in the competition hall were moved. One by one, they took out their tool embryos and placed them at the side. They began to write with flying dragons and dancing phoenixes, but soon, the sound of sighs became one. In nearly half an hour, no one could write a book. It could be seen how difficult it was to write a heavenly tome. Lin Muyu carefully sat cross-legged in the same place. He used mid-grade black gold powder to write oracle bone script characters that were almost indistinguishable to the naked eye on the black steel wristband. He was so focused that he did not look at the progress of the other participants. He also did not notice that a few young masters he had met in Whiteleaf City a few days ago were sitting at the tables beside him. However, a few of the young masters recognized Lin Muyu. They could not help but laugh mockingly. "Isn't this the guard who accompanied the beautiful young mistress in Whiteleaf City to drink and eat meat? This kind of idiot actually dares to participate in the Heavenly Tome Conference. He is simply asking to be humiliated. If he can write a book, I will eat *T." The red embroidered young master's brush suddenly flew up and shot into the sky. It was a light green brilliance. He could not help but be overjoyed. "Aha, I've written a book. It's a low-grade spiritual book." The bystanders all cast envious gazes at him. Not long after, a few more people wrote books, but they were all human books. Lin Muyu was still focused on writing on the black steel wristband in his hands. The surface of the wristband was suffused with a faint golden light. To be able to write so small was also a kind of ability. At this moment, many of the young masters had already turned their gazes to the front. They saw a beautiful young lady dressed in luxurious clothing sitting there. She had a delicate face, beautiful eyebrows, and bright eyes. She was a young lady who was full of spirit. The spiritual brush in her hand was constantly waving, writing the marks of the black gold powder on a shield. She looked very focused. The green embroidered young master at the side was enchanted. "Oh my God, is that the #1 beauty of Sunset City, Man Tingfang? As expected, she is as beautiful as a jade carving. If I can get first place, will I be able to marry her?" Man Tingfang seemed to have heard the young master's words. She immediately looked back, her beautiful eyes filled with disgust. This was an incomparably cold and arrogant young lady. Chapter 5:36. Swoosh. A rich orange light shot into the sky from the arena. It was another heavenly book that attracted the power of heaven and earth. Furthermore, it was a superior grade spiritual book. The first spiritual book in the arena was actually a superior grade spiritual book. The short sword that became the carrier of the spiritual book was slowly placed on the table. The creator was a young man of about 27 or 28 years old. He slowly stood up and cried tears of joy to the sky. It's a book, a book? It's a superior grade spiritual book. Father, do you see it? Your child has become a book. I didn't disgrace my ancestors. The time for our Sikong family to rise again has come. Before he could finish crying, another orange beam of light shot into the sky beside him. Swoosh. It was another heavenly book that attracted the power of heaven and earth. The light was even more intense. It should be a superior grade spiritual book. The girl beside the spiritual book stood up slowly. It was Man Tingfang. She walked to the examiner's table with an exquisite shield and said with a smile, "Father, your daughter has written a superior grade spiritual book." Man Ning was gratified and said with a smile, "You are indeed my daughter. Fang Er, come and sit beside father. Examiner, please register Fang Er." The examiner nodded. Ding Shi cupped his fists and said with a smile, "Congratulations to Miss Fang for writing a superior grade spiritual book. Logically speaking, Miss Fang is likely to be the champion of this heavenly book conference, right?" The corner of Man Tingfang's mouth rose. She said with a smile, "Thank you, Marshal Ding Shi, for your kind words. However, there are many capable people in this heavenly book conference. Perhaps there are people more powerful than Fang Er." Although Man Tingfang spoke very modestly, her eyes were already filled with arrogance. In her eyes, the 10,000 participants of the Heavenly Book Conference had already become losers. If it wasn't for the inappropriate occasion, she would have already put her snow-white legs on the table. Ding Shi smiled without saying anything. The youngest daughter of the Sunset Marquee Man Ning had been spoiled and pampered since young. He had suffered greatly from Man Tingfang's domineering and unruly ways. Rays of light flew out one after another in the arena, but the books that were written were all human books, so it was no longer strange. As long as a scholar entered the Heavenly Book Hall, even the worst one would be able to write a human book. This kind of person could only be called a talent, but not a genius. At this moment, a ray of light shot into the sky from the arena. It was an earthy yellow light that shot into the sky. Book of the Earth. The first Earth book appeared, although it was only a low-grade Earth book. Just like Man Tingfang, the author was also a young woman. However, she wore a dark purple cloak, and her face was hidden under the hood. She slowly stood up, held the artifact embryo, and came before the chief examiner. She handed over her bamboo stick, but the artifact embryo was still kept by herself. Otherwise, it would become the Heavenly Book Hall usurping the Heavenly Book. After all, if they wanted to collect this local book, they had to pay a certain price. The examiner looked up, but Qin Yin had already turned around. The moment Qin Yin turned around, Man Tingfang saw the peerless beauty under the cloak. In an instant, Man Tingfang was dumbfounded. She mumbled, "Impossible? This is absolutely impossible." Man Ning furrowed his brows and said, "Feng, what's impossible? There's always someone better than you, and there's always someone better out there. For someone to be able to write an earthly book, it's naturally because of his ability." Man Tingfang still shook her head. "Impossible, there's definitely no one more beautiful than me." Ding Shi vomited blood at the side. This Man Tingfang's attention was completely different, but it was very rare for a woman to be more beautiful than Man Tingfang. Ding Shi really couldn't think of any other woman in Sunset City who could be more beautiful than Man Tingfang, and even make her admit it herself. Man Tingfang's beautiful face was filled with pain. She couldn't accept all of this. A woman who was more beautiful than her was actually able to inscribe a heavenly book of a higher grade than her. Where was the justice in this world? For a moment, Man Tingfang's heart was filled with emotions. Since there's a Yu, why should there be a Liang? There's still half an incense stick of time until the end of the competition. An examiner with a louder voice shouted, Lin Muyu was still fully focused on inscribing the divine text on the mystic steel wrist guard. On the side, a group of young masters had already given up on the idea of writing a book, but they still tirelessly teased Lin Muyu, who in their eyes was a rough and burly man. You actually wrote so many words. The young master in green had a look of disdain on his face. Do you think you can write a book with so many words? Ha, you idiot, if you can write a book, I'll eat sheep dung. The young master in yellow laughed heartily. This wrist guard looks ordinary, but you actually used mid-grade mystic gold powder to inscribe. This guy must be crazy. If you can write a spiritual book, oh no, if you can write an earthly book, I'll eat dog dung in front of everyone, ha. The young man in red laughed even more savagely. You little brat, if you can write it into a book, I will go to the stables and buy a giant elephant in front of everyone. I will watch the elephant poop. As long as it can poop, no matter how big it is, I will eat it all. What do you think? Lin Muyu remained silent and continued to inscribe the heavenly book. A few minutes later, just as the incense stick was about to burn out, Lin Muyu also finished writing the last 4 words on the wrist guard. Fire God destroys the world. The divine text indeed responded, and the golden light shone brightly. The next moment, the words condensed into a rich yellow light that shot up into the sky. It was another earthly book, and judging from the intensity of the light, it was a top-grade earthly book. Oh my God! Man Tingfang was so shocked that he stood up from his seat. He rubbed his eyes and said, "How is this possible? How can such a big beard write a top-grade earthly book?" Lin Muyu stood up and looked at the mystic steel wrist guard in satisfaction. There was a faint flame on it. This was a top-grade earthly book on the law of fire. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the young masters. Who was the one who said he wanted to eat dog dung in a variety of ways? Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The young masters ran away in a flash, and Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. People these days had no trust at all. Holding the top-grade earthly book and walking forward, Lin Muyu pinched his throat and said in a strange voice, "Sir, I'm done. This is my bamboo stick. Please help me register it." Young master. The chief examiner's face was full of respect. He knew that the person who wrote a top-grade earthly book would most likely be summoned by the commander soon, and might even be listed as a noble. This kind of person could not be offended. Man Ning also stood up, cupped his fists, and said with a smile, "This young master wrote a top-grade earthly book in one go. It's a blessing for my Sunset City, a blessing for my Iha country." Chief Examiner, what's this young master's name? The chief examiner was surprised. Young master is Li Residence Protector. Li Residence Protector? Man Ning frowned, then immediately smiled and said, "Young master is truly an outstanding talent." Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Is the ranking out?" The incense had already burned out, and Man Ning nodded. "Chief Examiner, please announce the ranking." "Yes, Marquis." The chief examiner walked forward with the scroll in hand and announced in a clear voice, "First place of the Heavenly Book Conference, Li Residence Protector Li Laifu. Second place of the Heavenly Book Conference, Lin Yin. Third place of the Heavenly Book Conference, Miss Man Tingfang." "I don't want." Man Tingfang looked at Lin Muyu's bearded face and couldn't help but take a few steps back. She grabbed Marquis Xiang's hand and said, "Father, this person is so ugly, I don't want him, I don't want to marry him." Man Ning frowned. "Feng, don't be stubborn, you should listen to your parents when it comes to marriage. This young master Li has both integrity and talent. You will naturally understand his good qualities in the future. Servants, prepare a banquet in the Sunset Hall. I want to invite the Li Residence Protector Li, Miss Lin Yin, and the top 10 scholars today." "Yes, Marquis." "No, I don't want." Man Tingfang's voice was very loud, and she turned around to enter the Heavenly Book Hall, extremely stubborn. Man Ning felt a little helpless and cupped his fists. "I'm very sorry, young Master Li, my daughter has always been unruly and willful, but I will definitely persuade her to marry you. This is the promise of the Heavenly Book Conference." Lin Muyu said respectfully, "Marquis, may I ask when the rewards will be distributed?" Man Ning couldn't help but laugh, and immediately said, "Chief Examiner, please give young Master Li and Miss Lin the corresponding gold tickets." The Chief Examiner walked forward and presented the prepared gold tickets. Lin Muyu received 80 gold tickets worth 100,000 each, and Qin Yin received 20. This time, the two of them had earned a total of 10 million Jianghu dollars. The Sunset Hall began to prepare for the noon banquet, while Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and smiled. The money was already in their hands, it was time to slip away. The Heavenly Book Conference was very complicated, and it was not difficult to slip away. Lin Muyu suddenly activated the Holy King realm to suppress a few guards, and immediately blended into the crowd with Qin Yin. They found a war horse in the periphery, and the two of them leaped onto the horse and rode straight to the north gate of Sunset City. There were not many people in the alleyway, it seemed that everyone had gone to watch the Heavenly Book Conference. However, they had not gone far when they suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves in front of them. A group of Iha Nation cavalry, led by a young girl, rushed over. That young girl was Man Tingfang. "Oh no," Qin Yin whispered, "has our identity been exposed?" "Not necessarily," Lin Muyu said calmly, "let's go and see what she has to say." Man Tingfang pointed a finger in the distance and said, "That bearded man, you actually used a trick to write a top-grade Earth book? What a despicable person. This young lady will never marry someone as despicable as you. Men, capture him, I want to interrogate him properly." The guard at the side looked helpless. "Miss Fang, if we disrespect the Heavenly Book Conference's champion, we won't be able to bear the Marquis's wrath." Man Tingfang gritted her teeth. "A bunch of trash. If you don't do it, I'll do it myself." As she said that, Man Tingfang suddenly pulled out a thin sword and urged her horse to charge over. Lin Muyu could not help but find it funny. She urged her horse forward, a faint ruler's battle flame circulating in her palm. Just as Man Tingfang pulled out her sword, her palm gently flipped, and a suction force wrapped around the sword's blade. With a sudden tug, Man Tingfang fell from her battle horse. However, at the same time, she reached out and grabbed Lin Muyu's fake beard. With a swoosh, she pulled the fake beard down and dropped it to the ground. Man Tingfang looked up and saw that Lin Muyu had transformed into an incomparably handsome young man after losing his beard. Moreover, a faint ruler's battle flame was enshrouding his body. One look and it was obvious that his cultivation was not ordinary. In an instant, Man Tingfang's heart was in a mess, and her face turned red. She said, "You're not allowed to leave. The champion of the Heavenly Book Conference must marry me." Lin Muyu looked at her with a smile and said something that made everyone burst out laughing. "I don't want to." Qin Yin giggled and urged her horse forward. She tugged on Taksha's reins and galloped toward the north gate with Lin Muyu. Man Tingfang looked up in the direction that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had disappeared. Her pretty face was full of unwillingness. She whimpered in pain and said, "No matter where you run to, I will catch you and bring you back to marry me. Just you wait." Chapter 537. Father. Man Tingfang's drawn-out coquettish voice was heard in the Sunset Hall as she raised her bruised elbow and said, "That person ran away and even injured my daughter. Father, you must seek justice for me." Man Ning trembled as he held his daughter's injured elbow and his face was suddenly filled with murderous intent. Man Tingfang was the pearl of his palm and since young, she was always held in his hands and feared to fall and held in his mouth for fear of melting. When had she ever suffered such a serious injury? Suddenly, Man Ning gritted his teeth and said, "Scoundrel, who is it that injured my Fanger to this state? Sunset Army Cavalry, prepare to assemble. Kill him." "Father." Man Tingfang anxiously stomped her feet and said, "Daughter did not ask you to kill him. I only asked you to capture him back, then what?" Man Ning was confused. "Then." Man Tingfang's face was flushed red as she said, "Then according to the agreement of the Tianshu conference, my engagement with him, what did you say?" Man Ning's body trembled. The first place of the Tianshu conference, the Li Residence's guard, ran away? Yes, he ran away with the second place, Lin Yin. How can this be? Man Ning flew into a rage as the fats on his fat body trembled. Someone, immediately send an order to Marshal Ding Shi to send out the army to search for those two people. Send a letter to inform the steel walls to investigate these two people. We must not let the Li residence's inner courtyard, who holds the Earth Book, leave the swift white province. He is my man. Yes, Margaret. The steel walls had long been reopened and there was an endless stream of merchants coming and going. Before the Marquis of the Sunset Sun's letter arrived, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had already arrived at the steel walls and easily crossed the city walls as merchants. Just as Lin Muyu and Qin Yin crossed the steel walls, suddenly a captaincy on the wall raised his spear and shouted, "The two of you, stop right there and turn back." How could Lin Muyu turn back? She pulled Taksha's reins and smiled. Xiao Yin, leave at full speed. All right. Qin Yin readily agreed. The two warhorses galloped away and Captaincy, who was on the city wall, had a furious expression. These two people are the first and second place of the Heavenly Book Conference. Men, get on your horses immediately and capture them. Ding San, will never let such talents leave Sunset City. The sound of horse hooves could be heard from behind. The Iha Kingdom had already sent out quite a number of light cavalry. Moreover, there was the sound of eagle cries coming from the sky. These must be the falcons that the Iha Kingdom had raised for hunting and tracking. Oh no, we might not be able to escape, Qin Yin said worriedly. I won't. Lin Muyu smiled confidently. She patted the dark steel bracer on her right wrist and said, "Have you forgotten that we have a superb heavenly book? Now it's time to see the power of a superb heavenly book." As she spoke, she activated the power of the heavenly book with a thought. A khaki-colored power of the heavens and earth descended from the sky and shone on Lin Muyu's bracer. The next moment, as Lin Muyu activated her thoughts, the sky suddenly turned blood red. Immediately, a fiery red rain began to fall. However, it was not cold rain, but a scorching rain of fire. The boiling lava acted as the rain and sizzled as it fell on the ground. Flames rose tens of meters into the air, directly sealing off the area of a few hundred meters outside the steel gate. Oh my God! On the city wall, the captaincy insignia on Ding San's collar was illuminated by the fiery red light. He said in shock, Is that the power of a superb heavenly book? How terrifying! Men, don't chase after him. This person has no intention of staying in Sunset City. Maybe this kind of genius doesn't stick to one pattern and doesn't want to be bound by others. The chilly arch at the side murmured, Then, General, what about Marshal Ding's order? This is a mission that we can't complete. There's no other way. Send out a letter and order Fire Moon City, Star End City, Red Soil City and other cities to send out scouts. Capture him if you can. Looking at the raging flames behind her, Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh out loud. The power of the heavenly book was indeed extraordinary. A superb heavenly book could actually cause disaster in a radius of nearly 300 meters. If it was a heavenly book, it might be able to cause a fire attack in a radius of 1 to 2 miles. It could be imagined that if both sides were in a battle formation and the other side suddenly used a heavenly book with the power of a heavenly book, the result would be unimaginable. Just imagine what would happen if a fire god destroyer fell into the Qingkuan battle formation of tens of thousands of pure steel armors. Thinking of this, Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a little heavy. After thinking for a while, she couldn't help but take out the white cloth that Ling Shu had left for her. This white cloth was a heavenly book of the law of space. This heavenly book could very likely summon the golden protective wall that Ling Shu had used before. The huge protective wall could protect the people within the range from harm. Perhaps to resist the destructive heavenly book, this kind of protective wall was needed. It seemed like she had to learn the heavenly book of the law of space. Only those who could plan ahead and make good decisions would be able to win the battle of the heavenly book in the future. In order to reunite the empire, Lin Muyu could be said to have put in a lot of effort. The two warhorses galloped quickly in the direction of Star-Piercing City. Ever since the Battle of the Wildfire Plains drowned the demon race's Qianfeng army, the demon race was forced to leave the humans' territory step by step. Dozens of cities in the northern border of the Swift White Province were also recovered, and star-piercing city once again showed signs of prosperity. Looking from afar, one could see an endless stream of commoners and merchants entering and leaving the city. Are we going into the city? Qinin smiled. It was currently winter, and the cold wind caused her black hair to sway. No need. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, we're only a day's journey away from Black Pine Pass, so let's not rest anymore. Xiao Yin, I'll have to trouble you. Once we reach Black Pine Pass tonight, we'll be safe. At least we won't be threatened by the Iha nation anymore. Not long after, heavy snow began to fall from the sky. It was simply one disaster after another, but fortunately, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had enough clothes on them. They only needed to wrap themselves in a leather robe and they could continue their journey. With the cover of the snow, they believed that the Iha nation's soldiers would not be able to catch up to them. They only needed to follow the Iha nation's official road to the north and they would be able to reach Black Pine Pass. Until late at night, the two warhorses were so tired that they were snorting in the snow. However, not far ahead was the Qinling Mountains, and they could even see the lights of Black Pine Pass swaying in the wind and snow. We're almost there. Qin Yin was a little happy. After running for so long, she was already extremely tired. Lin Muyu brushed the snow off her shoulders and felt the cold wind blowing on her face like a knife. Qin Yin, who was beside her, was like a beautiful elf wrapped in snow. Her curved eyebrows and eyelashes were covered in snow, and the outside of her leather robe was covered in frost. It was too unfair for the Imperial Highness of the Empire to accompany her in this kind of suffering. Fortunately, Qin Yin did not seem to mind. As long as she was with Lin Muyu, she did not care about suffering. Moreover, after experiencing so much, Qin Yin's state of mind had already matured a lot. How could an expert become stronger without going through experience? Unknowingly, Qin Yin's ambition was no longer to become the emperor, but to step into the divine realm. After all, the latter ambition was even greater. Be careful. Lin Muyu looked at the flickering flames in front and said, there's the Iha nation's army. Less than 5 miles away from Emosong Pass, there was a checkpoint set up by the side of the road, and there were camps by the side of the road. The Iha nation had stationed at least tens of thousands of troops here to prevent the imperial army from Emosong Pass from the south. Thinking about it, there were constant small conflicts between the empire and the Iha nation. How could Ding Shi let down his guard here? Tuck, tuck, tuck. The sound of hooves could be heard in the curtain of snow, and hundreds of Iha nation's armored cavalry rushed over in the flickering torches. Some were holding torches, while others pulled out their steel swords. The centurion in the lead said coldly, "Who are you? Don't you know that the pass is sealed at night? Go back immediately. All merchants are only allowed to enter Emosong Pass during the day." Qin Yin urged her horse forward slowly, and said in a very ethereal voice, "Sir, we have already come this far. If we go back, I'm afraid the horses will not be able to keep up. There is no place for us to stay within dozens of miles. I'm afraid my brother and I will freeze to death in the snow." The centurion raised his eyebrows and said, "So what if you freeze to death? That's your business. Anyway, this place has entered the night martial law. You two go back immediately, or you will be killed." "Is that so?" Lin Muyu urged her horse forward slowly and suddenly raised her palm. Immediately, the king's fighting flame soared, and an invisible domain pressed down. The group of Iha nation's armored cavalry stood there dumbfounded, unable to move. "All right, let's go." Lin Muyu smiled. For a saint-level combatant to pass through 100 ordinary soldiers was simply too easy. Takshu let out a long neigh and galloped forward. Lin Muyu raised his hand and pulled out his star's sword. He easily split the staghorn wood that served as a roadblock into two, and disappeared into the curtain of snow with Qin Yin. This level of obstruction was like child's play to him. After nearly 2 minutes, the group of Iha nation's soldiers finally woke up from the shock of the coercion. However, their meridians were numb, and they could not help but rub their joints and blood vessels. All of their faces were pale. The centurion asked doubtfully, "What happened just now? Was it the coercion of the sanctuary?" "Yes." A 10-man squad leader said respectfully, "That person must be a sanctuary powerhouse," and he went straight to Ink Pine Pass. "He should be a cultivator from the Empire." Humph, the Empire's cultivators are getting more and more arrogant. Forcefully breaking through the pass? I really don't know if Marshal Ding Shi's decision to restore the trade between the North and the South is right or wrong. The 10-man squad leader said resentfully, "Marshal Ding Shi is far-sighted. Moreover, if we don't restore the trade, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to obtain the rich minerals and resources from Lingbei. Lingbei province's iron ore is the best in the world, and Lingbei is rich in fish and rice. Our minerals are far inferior to Lingbei's, so there's nothing we can do about it." Sigh. The centurion looked at the Qinling Mountains, and his eyes lit up. He clenched his fists and said, "I really hope to see the Iha nation's warriors pull themselves together in my lifetime. We'll cross the Qinling Mountains and sweep away the corrupt and brutal empire, saving the people from the abyss of suffering." The 10-man squad leader was just an old soldier, and there was a smile in his old eyes. He said, "Who knows? The black and white sides of the world have confused many people." The centurion was stunned. He had no idea what the 10-man squad leader was talking about, but his face hurt from the cold wind. He quickly sheathed his sword and rubbed his hands. "Let's go back to the camp. It's freezing outside. It seems like the snow won't stop tonight." "Yes." Chapter 5:38. In the camp of the garrison of Xiang City, the cold wind blew in through the gap of the commander's tent, causing the candlelight to flicker. "Marshal, rest early." The guard said respectfully. "It's okay." Ding Shi's eyes were fixed on the scroll in his hand. The words recorded on the scroll were the military book left by Xiang Wenyin, the military god. It was a page about the Qianquan battle formation. Feng Jixing launched the Qianquan battle formation with 60,000 troops and stopped the armor demon in the Unicorn Forest. It was a miracle. In the records of the battles between humans and demons, there were 2 large-scale field battles. One was when Long Qianlin used the Iron Chain Horse tactic to fight the Thunderchong Legion and lost more than half of his troops. The other was when Feng Jixing used the Qianquan battle formation to fight the Armor Demon Legion of the demons. In a sense, Feng Jixing's tactic was more successful than Long Qianlin's. If he could use the Qianquan battle formation more skillfully, he might be able to defeat the demons with this tactic. Voila! The tent was opened and Ding Sanging walked in covered with snow. He took off his battle robe and handed it to the attendant. He walked straight to Ding Shi, glanced at the scroll in Ding Shi's hand and said with a smile, "Marshal is still thinking about the Qianquan battle formation?" Ding Shi rubbed his temples. His face was full of fatigue as he said, "Qian Feng and Lei Chong will definitely not let the matter rest after their defeat in the Wildfire Plains. The demons will make a comeback sooner or later. What are the chances of our Iha country winning? Long Qianlin's arrow chest and third-rate white diamond arrowheads? I really don't know if those white diamond arrowheads can really penetrate the armor of the armor demon, as Long Qianlin said." Ding Sanging said, "The commander-in-chief relies heavily on Long Qianlin, Yi Xuanhuan, and the others. He gave most of the military power of the Iha country to these 2 people, leaving less than 60,000 men and horses for Marshal Ding. Which soldier of the empire doesn't feel injustice for Marshal Ding? But now, Marshal Ding is still racking his brains for the safety of Iha country. Why do you have to do this?" I, Ding Shi, am not a narrow-minded person. Commander weakening my military power must have its uses, but Commander still left 60,000 troops for me. This is enough. Third watch, after this heavy snow stops, reorganize the troops. I want to drill them in the Qianquan battle formation." "Yes, Marshal. By the way, have you chased after the champion of the Heavenly Book Conference?" "No." Ding San felt even more helpless as he said, "This general really doesn't understand. This young master of the Heavenly Tome Conference's champion had the opportunity to marry the incomparably beautiful young lady Man Tingfang, so why did he refuse?" Ding Shi couldn't help but laugh. Third Miss has always been unruly and willful. Perhaps there is a reason why she ran away. Anyway, if it were me, I would also run away, Ding Sanging sat down and said, "Commander Ding, you're still in the mood to joke around here. We didn't manage to chase down the champion of the Heavenly Book Gathering and let such a talent escape. The Sunset Marquis will definitely blame us. Commander Ding, you'd better think about how to deal with the Marquis." "Deal with the Marquis?" Ding Shi laughed. "The generals of Sunset City are all pot-bellied and mediocre. After the Battle of Lanyan City, they've long lost their will to fight and only know how to enjoy themselves. In the entire Swift White Province, if I, Ding Shi, don't lead troops, who will? Don't worry, the Marquis won't do anything to me." Third watch, how did the champion in second place escape? Logically speaking, the light cavalry stationed within the steel walls are all top-notch horses. There's no reason they couldn't catch up. Ding San cupped his fists and said, "Just as we were about to give chase, the champion used the top-quality earth tome he had just carved and activated the power of heaven and earth. Nearly 300 meters of fire rain blocked the exit of the steel walls, so we had no way of giving chase." A 300-meter range of fire rain? Ding Shi couldn't help but be stunned. How is that possible? I've seen the people of Northern Qi use the Heavenly Tome. That time, the middle-quality Earth Tome only summoned a 20-meter range of fire rain. Although his top-quality Earth Tome is strong, it shouldn't be that much stronger, right? I don't know. Ding Shi clenched his fists and said, "For such a talent to leave Swift White Province is truly a pity. Send more people out to search. Let's hope he'll change his mind and be willing to marry the third Mississippi. In truth, there's nothing wrong with the third Miss, just that her temper is bad. Her character and knowledge are both good, and she's fresh and beautiful. This Li Manor Protector is really too confusing. Could it be, because he once offended the second son of Northern Qi, he fled to escape punishment? That shouldn't be." Ding San sat there on his knees, not knowing how to interrupt. He just looked at Ding Shi and muttered to himself. At Ink Pine Pass, the curtain of snow blocked one's line of sight. Visibility was no more than 50 meters, but when Lin Muyu and Qin Yin arrived at the gates, there were still people above who saw them. A general raised a long knife and asked, "Who are you, old man?" "Ink Pine Pass is under martial law at night. No one is allowed to enter. Please return." Lin Muyu walked forward and took out her general's token from her bosom. She held it high and said, "Look at this, then decide if you want to open the gates and let us in." The general raised his torch and looked at it from afar. He saw that the golden token glowed with a golden light, but he couldn't see the words clearly. But looking at the shape, it was indeed the token of an imperial general. Immediately his whole body trembled. He said to the guards beside him, "Take a few dozen people with me to take a look. This person looks like he's no ordinary person." "Yes, General." A few minutes later, the iron gates opened with a creak. The cold wind outside immediately poured into the pass, and a group of imperial soldiers walked out. The centurion walked forward respectfully and took a look at Lin Muyu's token. Immediately, he was scared out of his wits. He quickly knelt on one knee and saluted, saying, "This general greets Commander Yu." "Commander Yu?" The group of imperial soldiers was dumbfounded. They looked at each other and quickly understood. Within the empire, there was only one person who could be called Commander Yu, and that was Lin Muyu, who had defeated the Qianfeng Corps in the Wildfire Plains. She was an imperial general who was on the same level as Feng Jixing. Very soon, the group of soldiers knelt down one after another. The snow on the ground melted a little and immediately wet their knees. Lin Muyu raised her hand. "Get up, don't stand on ceremony. Let's enter the pass first. Arrange 2 warm rooms for me and have someone make some delicious food. Understood?" "Yes, Commander." The centurion stood up, but his gaze fell on Qin Yin, who was beside Lin Muyu. Under the illumination of the torch, this young lady was very beautiful, and her identity was obvious. Everyone knew who Lin Muyu was. If this young lady wasn't the princess of the 7 seas, Tang Xiaoxi, then she should be the current empress. For a moment, the centurion was so excited that he almost fainted. Many imperial soldiers might not even get to see the empress once in their entire lives. However, It was very likely that he would be in close contact with the Empress only 2 meters away. This was a great honor. "Commander, who is this young lady?" He couldn't help but ask. However, Lin Muyu said, "Don't ask what you shouldn't. Don't make it public." This centurion also had some information and knew that Princess She had been in charge of Lanyan City for the past half a month. Rumor had it that the Empress, Qin Yin, was in seclusion. Based on this deduction, the identity of this young lady in front of him had been confirmed. He immediately cupped his fists respectfully, bowed deeply to Qin Yin, and said, "Please enter the pass." It was warm inside Emosong Pass. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's rooms were arranged on the 3rd floor of the pass. There was a small window facing Lingnan, and one could faintly see the fire in the wind and snow. There was a heater in the room, and it was very warm. Lin Muyu helped Qin Yin take off her cloak and shook off the snow on it. Meanwhile, Qin Yin moved forward and smiled as she helped Lin Muyu untie the belt of her leather robe. At the side, the 3 Kiliarchs who were guarding Emosong Pass were dumbfounded. They had already guessed Qin Yin's identity, so they didn't dare to say anything in the face of such a heartless display of affection and could only endure it. After Lin Muyu sat down, she glanced at their military insignia. There was a small insignia of Qihai City below it. This group of people were all generals under Tanglan. It seemed that the defensive line around the Qinling Mountains was once again under Tanglan's control. This couldn't be helped. After all, Lin Muyu had only joined the Imperial Army for 4 to 5 years, while Tanglan had been in control of the army for as long as 40 years. This kind of accumulation of deep roots couldn't be changed in a short period of time. After asking a few questions about the defense of Emosong Pass, Lin Muyu ordered them to leave and not to wait on her. Then they ate the food that the soldiers brought. It was very delicious, and they didn't dare to be negligent. There was meat and vegetables for this meal. Presumably, to the soldiers, being able to eat such a meal was no different from celebrating a festival. The snow stopped the next day, but at a glance, thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were covered in snow. It was a very magnificent sight. After Lin Muyu and Qin Yin finished breakfast, they prepared to set off. Qin Yin changed into a snow-white leather robe embroidered with a faint golden-purple flower pattern. Immediately, there was a huge change in her aura. As for Lin Muyu, he wore the white robe of the Imperial Army, which made the group of soldiers once again confirm his identity. There were 500 cavalrymen from Emosong Pass to escort them back to Lanyan City, so that they could take care of each other along the way. Lin Muyu had a pile of treasures in her arms, so she had to be careful. When they passed by Bugu City, she mobilized 500 cavalrymen, and when they passed by Coldstar City, she mobilized another 1,000 cavalrymen. When they entered the North Ridge province 2 days later, she already had an army of 3,000 cavalrymen. As for this army, Lin Muyu didn't want to return it. Instead, she asked Qin Yin to directly leave an imperial edict, and these 3,000 cavalrymen were directly added to the Dragon Guard battalion and handed over to Wei Chou for training. On one hand, it could weaken Tanglan's forces in the Earth Star province, and on the other hand, it could slightly strengthen the Dragon Guard battalion. Chapter 539. After returning to Lanyan City, the first thing Lin Muyu did was to write down a complete volume of the divine tomes of the laws of fire, wind, lightning, and life based on her memory. However, there was only one volume, and it was kept by Tang Xiaoxi. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi studied it together. Thus, the inscriptions on the divine tomes of the 8 laws in the Heavenly Tome Forest were all under the control of the Zetian Palace. In the 3 days after returning to Lanyan City, Lin Muyu tried many times to write a divine tome, but she failed again and again. The key to writing a book was related to one's state of mind, but not every inscription could draw upon the power of heaven and earth. In 3 days, Lin Muyu inscribed nearly 20 tool embryos, but only 2 books were completed. One was a middle-grade earth book, and the other was a high-grade earth book. The rest were all failures. On the other hand, Qin Yin had completed 3 books, 1 low-grade earth book and 2 top-grade spiritual books. This made Tang Xiaoxi extremely envious. After a trip to the Heavenly Tome Forest, Qin Yin's cultivation in heavenly tomes was already firmly above Tang Xiaoxi's. In the afternoon, Jin Xiaotang appeared in the Valiant Dragon Legion's camp. She was dressed in a beautiful green robe, and when her gaze fell on the embryos in front of Lin Muyu, she could not help but light up with joy. Wow, is this a high-grade earth book? This is a middle-grade earth book, and there's also a low-grade earth book. Are these two embryos top-grade spiritual books? Oh my god, were all these divine tomes written by Brother Yu? Jin Xiaotang was overjoyed. Not all of them. Lin Muyu did not tell her that 3 of them were written by Empress Qin Yin. After all, this was too shocking. It was too early for news that Empress Qin Yin was well-versed in the law of light to spread. She said, only 2 were written by me, and the rest were written by my friends. Xiaoying, how much can these divine tomes sell for? I'm not sure about the others, but this high-grade wind law tome should be worth at least this much. She extended her index finger. 10 million? Lin Muyu was overjoyed. Can you really sell it for that much? Maybe more expensive. Jin Xiaotang said, up until now, very few of the masters in the Heavenly Tome Pavilion have been able to write an upper-tier Earth Tome. This upper-tier Earth Tome is probably the most powerful Heavenly Tome in Lanyan City. Brother Yu, are you sure you want to sell this book? Lin Muyu muttered to herself for a moment. She thought about how powerful the Earth Tome was. If it were to fall into the hands of a thief, the consequences would be unthinkable. She said, I'm not selling it. It's just a display item to increase the Chamber of Commerce's popularity. All right. Jin Xiaotang readily agreed. Lin Muyu smiled. In the future, don't sell the tomes of heaven that I write that are above the level of earthly tomes. They are only for display. When there's a war in the future, you have to return all of them to me. These tomes of heaven are for killing, not for display. Yes, Xiaotang knows. Does Big Brother you still want to engrave it? Of course. Lin Muyu had a card up her sleeve. Her attainments in engraving seemed to be above the heavenly tome. Furthermore, engraving was a passive ability, so it was not impossible to use it to earn money. Perhaps she could only rely on engraving to earn money in the future. The next day, Heavenly Tome Pavilion. What? Ji Lin's hand trembled slightly, and the tea in his teacup spilled onto the ground. He looked up at Ji Shang and said, say that again. Did I hear wrongly? The Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce displayed a upper-tier earth tome? Yes, grandfather. Ji Shang said respectfully, it's a upper-tier earth tome of the Law of Wind. It's very rich in spiritual power. Once it activates the power of heaven and earth, its might will be unimaginable. I really don't know who was able to engrave such a heavenly tome pavilion. At the side, the Lu residence's patriarch, Lu Yen, took a sip of tea and said, Lord Steward, it looks like there's another capable person in Lanyan City besides the heavenly tome pavilion. It's a pity that such a talent was not used by our heavenly tome pavilion. Ji Lin said, does Lord Lu Yen know who wrote this upper-tier earth tome? I don't know. Lu Yen said, but I can deduce that this person must be inextricably linked to the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, he wouldn't have displayed this priceless artifact embryo in the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce. Isn't he afraid of someone snatching it? Ji Shang said, Lord Lu Yen might not know this, but the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce has at least 200 Divine Temple experts guarding it. Let alone snatching it, they can't even take a glance at it. Lu Yen stroked his white beard and said, Steward Ji Lin, the waters of Lanyan City's Heavenly Tome realm are getting murkier and murkier. I'm afraid this isn't a good thing. It's obvious that someone wants to establish a faction outside of the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. If we don't handle this matter properly, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Tome Pavilion will fall out of favor with Her Highness. At that time, I'm afraid that everything we have will disappear in the blink of an eye. Oh, does Lord Lu Yen have an idea? We must find out who this person is as soon as possible and recruit him into the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. Also, Lu Yan's eyes shone brightly as he said, there's also news from Iha country's Xiang City. Man Ning held a Heavenly Tome conference, and a person called the Li Residence Protector, wrote a supreme grade book on the law of fire. He then fled Xiang City, and some people suspect that he has already entered the Empire's borders. If Lord Steward can find this Li residence protector and invite him to join the Heavenly Tome Pavilion with great rewards and status, then Her Highness will value our Heavenly Tome Pavilion even more, right? Ji Lin slowly nodded. What Lord Lu Yen said is extremely correct. I'll immediately send people to investigate and find this Li residence protector and have him work for us. Alright, then this old man wishes Lord Steward success in advance. Oh, Lord Lu Yen is too polite. At dusk, the setting sun shone on the pavilions of the spiritual medicine department like fire. Inside the pavilion, there was a small table filled with delicacies. There was also a pot of boiling rock mutton. Chu Yao had a happy expression as she looked at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi with a grin, saying, I haven't seen you for a long time. Where did he go to cultivate? Lin Muyu said, he went to Lingnan. Chu Yao blinked her starry eyes and did not ask further, smiling, looks like Yu's cultivation should have improved quite a bit. Lin Muyu looked at Chu Yao and said, on the other hand, big sister Chu Yao, how is your imperial sword technique? Chu Yao chuckled, second heavenly realm, I tested my strength 3 days ago at Temple Deacon Xianyuan Hong's place. I have the strength of a level 78 heavenly king. He even invited me to become a deacon in the temple if I don't want to work in the spiritual medicine department. Ha! Lin Muyu chuckled. Not being a great deacon of the spiritual medicine department and becoming a deacon in the temple, great deacon Xianyuan Hong really knows how to joke. Right, Xiao Shi and I still have a piece of meat here, leave it for big sister Chu Yao to help you cultivate. I hope you can step into the saint realm as soon as possible, then you will be able to maintain your beauty forever. I want to too. Chu Yao pursed her lips and said, the people in the spiritual medicine division said that if I can't step into the saint domain within these 2 years, then it will be too late. At that time, even if I step into the saint domain, I will be an old woman. Wu, you said that after 30 years, when I step into the saint domain, I will become Grandma Chu Yao. And looking at you and little Shi who are still so young, I will want to die. At this point, Chu Yao's voice was indescribably sorrowful. Lin Muyu could not help but smile. No, Xiao Shi and I will not watch you grow old. Tang Xiaoxi also smiled, saying, right, if big sister Chu Yao needs anything, Mu and I will do our best to help. I have good news for you, big sister Chu Yao. Oh. What good news? Tang Xiaoxi sat up straight, puffed out her round chest, and said with a smile, outside the demon subduing pass, the demon clan guards the forest of the Infinity Edge, and now they have joined the savage tribe to guard the forest of the Infinity Edge. Just half a month ago, a wandering traveler from the desert said that he had seen a powerful hermit in the desert, and the martial art he was good at was Lord Chu Huayin's unique martial art, the star-picking finger. So half a month ago, I entrusted the demon clan to look for this hermit, bringing a large sum of money and a sword used by Lord Chu Huayin as a keepsake, hoping to find the mental cultivation method of the star-picking finger from him. As she said this, Tang Xiaoxi paused for a moment and then said with a smile, the star-picking finger is a unique martial art and the mental cultivation method naturally has its own marvelous aspects. If big sister Chu Yao can learn the star-picking finger, I believe it will not be a problem for you to step into the saint realm in 1 or 2 years. Big brother's star-picking finger. Chu Yao was slightly absent-minded, and then she raised her head and said gratefully, if big sister Xiao she can find the mental cultivation method of the star-picking finger, Chu Yao will be eternally grateful, and the star-picking finger will definitely become the unique martial art of the Chu clan, passed down from generation to generation. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Good, that's for sure. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something and said with a smile, passed down from generation to generation of the Chu clan? It seems that big sister Chu Yao has already found a man to marry, right? Chu Yao was stunned and said, no, Xiao Shi, you are thinking too much? As she said that, Chu Yao looked at Lin Muyu faintly, and immediately, Lin Muyu was stunned, and she almost spat out the wine that she had just taken a sip of. She said, big sister Chu Yao, are you thinking of something crazy? Chu Yao smiled without saying a word. She was also shocked by the crazy idea in her heart, but after thinking about it carefully, she felt that it was a great temptation, and it was indeed feasible. After experiencing the upheavals of the past few years, Chu Yao had also become stronger and more independent, but the thoughts in her heart had also become more stubborn. Her thoughts were very simple. If she couldn't give birth to the child of the person she loved, then what was the point of being a woman? But this idea was too bold, and she had to eat a piece of goat meat to calm herself down. Just as they were about to finish eating, suddenly, a person wearing the badge of a Golden Star instructor from the Holy Sanctum walked over and respectfully cupped his fists to Lin Muyu and said, "Great Deacon, something happened in the beast taming division. Would you like to go and take a look? I am no longer the Great Deacon." Lin Muyu frowned. "Change the way you address me from now on to Commander." The Golden Star instructor bowed respectfully and said, "Something really happened in the beast taming division. I will go now." Lin Muyu stood up, and so did Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao, presumably to go and see what had happened. Chapter 540. In the temple, the beast taming department was in an uproar. When Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and Chu Yao arrived, they saw the two groups arguing endlessly, their faces red with anger. The three deacons, Gu Yang, Zhou Yao, and Zhenfang, were on the side, but they couldn't maintain the stability of the situation. Deacon Xianyuan Hong didn't interfere with the management of the beast taming department, so he didn't appear. At the edge of the beast pen, a young Silver Star sparring master hugged a dead swift wolf and cried incessantly. There were claw marks on his arm and blood flowed out. A middle-aged sparring master next to him patted his shoulder and said, "Bull, don't cry. Now that the swift wolf is dead, we can just go to the dragon-seeking forest and catch another one. Don't provoke them anymore." The young sparring master wiped his tears and said, "Uncle Zhao, you saw it too. Those instructors don't even treat us sparring masters as human beings. We agreed to stop the fight, but Zhang Cheng let his bloodthirsty tiger bite my swift wolf to death." Not far away, a Silver Star instructor who was caressing the bloodthirsty tiger's head sneered and said, "Niu Bei, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to accept your loss. Since we've agreed to a duel and my bloodthirsty tiger accidentally killed your swift wolf, you should just accept your fate. Stop crying and act like a man. At most, this young master will pay you back. A swift wolf cub is at most 20 Jin coins. This young master can afford it." Bull said angrily, "You are also a beast-taming master, and you have also learned the beast-taming art. Don't you know that after the spirit fusion, the master and pet's consciousness become one? You killed my swift wolf, just like you killed me once. Do you know that kind of pain and despair? My pet doesn't want to die. I can feel its cries for help. You, people like you don't understand." Zhang Cheng stood up and said indifferently, "Then what do you want? Do you want to fight me? If so, I accept your challenge, but the next person to die might be you and not the wolf." The bull clam gritted his teeth but did not say anything else. He knew that he was no match for Zhang Cheng. At this time, Lin Muyu parted the crowd and brought Chu Yao and Tang Xiaoxi in. Gu Yang, Zhou Yao, and Zhenfang all saw them and bowed respectfully. Marquis Yunling, Princess Shi, and Grand Deacon Chu Yao. The three people who had come were far too esteemed. Although Lin Muyu had resigned from her position as the Grand Deacon of the Divine Hall, he had single-handedly established and controlled the beast-taming department. Xianyuan Hong had never overstepped his authority over the beast-taming department, which was probably what Qin Yin had wanted. As for Zhenfang, Zheng Yifan had performed a meritorious deed in saving the emperor's life, so he was reinstated and rebuilt the Shenwei Battalion as the Shenwei Battalion. Since Zheng Yifan was friends with Xianyuan Hong, Zheng Fang re-entered the Holy Temple as a deacon. Zheng Yifan searched for various secret methods to restore his son's Sea of Qi, which had been destroyed by Chu Huai. "What happened?" Lin Muyu asked. Zhen Fang cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Commander Yu, two people from the beast-taming department were competing with their pets. Due to a mistake, the Silver Star instructor Zhang Cheng's bloodthirsty tiger killed the Bronze Star training master bull clam's swift wolf. According to the laws of the empire, Zhang Cheng is a noble while Bull Clam is just a commoner, so we should not pursue this matter. However, according to the rules of the Divine Hall, we will force Zhang Cheng to compensate for Bull Clam's loss. Lin Muyu furrowed her brows and walked forward. Bull Clam. Head Deacon. Bull Clam couldn't change his words and immediately said, Commander, I had an agreement with Zhang Cheng to fight, but Zhang Cheng was too ruthless. My swift wolf was bitten to death, and no matter how much I begged for mercy, he wouldn't order the bloodthirsty tiger to stop. I hope that Commander can seek justice for me and for the commoner training masters who were bullied in the Holy Temple. Lin Muyu couldn't help but sigh. The Empire's rules were strict, but they also divided people into different classes. To a certain extent, the Empire's level of civilization was indeed not as good as the Iha nation, which promoted equality of all living beings. This kind of differential treatment was hard to escape even in the Holy Temple. However, after experiencing so many things, Lin Muyu also knew that this kind of conflict between nobles and commoners wasn't something she could change. Therefore, she could only change what she could, such as the Holy Temple. The next moment, Lin Muyu looked straight at Zhang Cheng and said, Zhang Cheng. Zhang Cheng's body trembled, and he hurriedly knelt on one knee and cupped his fists. Commander, this subordinate is here. Just like you, Niu Bei is also a member of the Sanctum. Once there is a war, you and him will be comrades who will go through thick and thin together. You killed his swift wolf now, aren't you afraid that he will stab you in the back? Aye. Zhang Cheng frowned. Commander, this subordinate knows his mistake, but Bull Clam is just a commoner copper star sparring master, yet he dares to be so arrogant. This subordinate can't stand it. Offend? Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. What do you mean by offend? Zhang Cheng said, according to the rules, when eating in the Holy Temple's cafeteria, the commoners should give up their table for the nobles. However, not only did Bull Clam not give up, he was also arrogant towards this subordinate. This subordinate was indignant, so I challenged him. Lin Muyu looked at him indifferently and said, when it comes to eating, everyone should be equal. It's just that this rule of inequality is imprinted on us when we are born. Zhang Cheng, you are a martial artist of the Holy Temple. Martial artists cultivate their heart and virtue. A strong martial artist's state of mind should be broad and calm. As the saying goes, 100 rivers run into the sea. It's great to have tolerance, it's great to have no desires. Do you think Deacon Guyang or Great Deacon Xianyuan Hong would fight with someone over a table? Zhang Cheng actually revealed a trace of grievance and said, but Commander, this subordinate is a fifth-class noble of the Empire. Why should I be bullied by a commoner like Bull Clam? Commander, you can't just protect Bull Clam and bully me. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Chu Yao also smiled. Lin Muyu still looked at Zhang Cheng and said, Zhang Cheng, as a first-class noble of the Empire, I still use an equal attitude to reason with you. This is the true grace of a noble. Think about it carefully. Men, take Zhang Cheng away and put him in confinement for 3 days. Zhen Fang cupped his fists and signaled with his eyes. 2 instructors immediately took Zhang Cheng away. Lin Muyu looked at Guyang and respectfully cupped her fists. Grandpa Guyang, shall we go see the Great Deacon? In the main hall of the Holy Temple, Xianyuan Hong was reading a stack of scrolls attentively. He only raised his head when Lin Muyu, Guyang, Tang Xiaoxi, Chu Yao, and Zhen Fang entered. His kind face was full of smiles as he said, You're here? Have a seat. Many thanks, Great Deacon. Lin Muyu arranged for Tang Xiaoxi, Chu Yao, and the others to sit down and serve tea. Then, she sat down on a chair close to Xianyuan Hong and said, Great Deacon, I've just settled a dispute between the nobles and commoners. I believe such matters have always existed in the Holy Temple. Xianyuan Hong nodded. The Holy Temple has been established for nearly 10,000 years and has left behind many bad habits. Not to mention the Holy Temple, there are many bad habits in the entire empire. However, these need to be changed. After all, the upper echelons of the empire are still decided by the nobles. We can't rush for quick results. I know. Lin Muyu said, That's why I have a plan that I would like to discuss with the great deacon. Oh. Xin Yuanhong couldn't help but smile. Speak your mind. There's no need to be polite with me. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. I hope that the great deacon can establish a martial virtue hall in the Holy Temple. The position of the martial virtue hall is above all the other halls in the Holy Temple. Every cultivator who enters the Holy Temple must first cultivate their martial virtues before learning martial arts. Before they learn martial arts, they must first understand what martial virtues are. This way, they can reduce the infighting between the people in the Holy Temple. Cultivate martial virtues? Xin Yuanhong muttered to himself. After a while, he said solemnly, if a new martial virtue hall is established, I'm afraid the Holy Temple will have to draft a new set of martial virtues. If you can draft it, I will establish the martial virtue hall. The martial virtue hall will be above all other halls. All right. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, I would like to borrow Grandfather Guyang for a while. Grandfather Guyang is an honest and virtuous person. With his assistance, I should be able to get twice the results with half the effort. Good. Xin Yuanhong smiled. Deacon Guyang, I'll leave it to you to assist you. Yes, great deacon. After exiting the grand hall, Guyang said helplessly, You forced me to do something beyond my abilities. I, Guyang, have lived a mediocre life. How would I know what martial virtues are? Lin Muyu turned around and held Guyang's hands with a smile. Grandfather Guyang, you're too modest. Why did Great Deacon Lei Hong give you such a heavy responsibility? It's not because of your extraordinary martial arts cultivation, but because Grandfather Guyang is calm, generous, and open-minded. I won't say anything more about the martial virtues of the Holy Temple. I'll leave it all to you, Grandfather Guyang. Guyang was taken aback. He had lived a mediocre life and was always wise to protect himself. He didn't expect Lin Muyu to praise him like this. Zhen Fang cupped his fists and said, Deacon Guyang is a modest person. You're the most suitable person to cultivate martial virtues. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, Grandpa Guyang, you don't have to decline anymore. You also know that Mumu is busy with military affairs all day long and has to cultivate. He has no time to recultivate his martial virtue. Besides, Mumu is still too young and inexperienced. I'm afraid the martial virtue he cultivated won't be able to convince the public. If it's the martial virtue you wrote, it will be completely different. Guyang couldn't say anything else. He cupped his fists and said, Then I'll obey Princess Xi's orders. I'll do my best to write the martial virtues. At night, he returned to the commander's tent in the Longdan army camp. After cultivating the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll for a few days, he heard Wei Chao's voice coming from outside. Commander, the Imperial Army's Deputy Commander Zhang Wei requests an audience. Zhang Wei? What's the matter? I don't know. He wants to break into the camp. This bastard. Lin Muyu stood up, only to see Zhang Wei walking in looking travel-worn. Commander Yu, why are you so tyrannical and unreasonable? How am I tyrannical and unreasonable? Lin Muyu was confused. Zhang Wei said, Zhang Cheng of the Beast-Taming Division only killed Niu Bei's Swiftwolf by mistake. Commander actually punished him so heavily. I, Zhang Wei, am not satisfied. Zhang Cheng is a noble while Niu Bei is just a commoner. Why? Lin Muyu frowned. Old Zhang, tell me the truth. Who is Zhang Cheng to you? Zhang Wei couldn't help but blush. That kid is this general's little whore brother. Humph, I knew it. Chapter 541. Master, just say the word, are you going to release Zhang Cheng or not? Zhang Wei sat cross-legged in the commander's tent, looking like a hoodlum, as though he would not leave until Lin Muyu spoke. You! Lin Muyu was furious. He pointed at him and said, Old Zhang, with your conduct, you still have the cheek to be the deputy commander of the Imperial Guards. If I were you, I would have been so ashamed that I would have been promoted to a corporal. Zhang Wei stared at her. Anyways. Master, you don't know how to reward and punish him. What did Zhang Cheng do wrong? You punished him like that. According to the Empire's laws, he definitely did not break any laws. Furthermore, he is willing to compensate for Cow Muscle's loss. He is already extremely benevolent. He violated martial ethics. Lin Muyu said indifferently. Zhang Wei was startled. What martial ethics? Old Zhang, have never heard of it after being in temple for so many years. Sai, forget it. Lin Muyu said helplessly. I don't think you understand martial ethics. When I first entered temple, you bullied me. Zhang Wei was a little ashamed and said, Why are you bringing up the past? You are a bad person. Lin Muyu glanced at him. So you also know that I can beat the crap out of you with one finger? Zhang Wei pointed at him. Look, what martial ethics are you talking about? You are the great deacon of temple. You cannot speak vulgarities. Even I, old Zhang, do not speak vulgarities. Lin Muyu spat out and said, Locking Zhang Cheng up is temple's matter. Go ask Deacon Guyang tomorrow. Don't talk to me about this, if you don't leave. Wei Chou, go get Sidu Sen and Sidu Shui to come in and chase Zhang Wei out. He is disturbing my rest. Wei Chou laughed outside the tent. This subordinate will go now. Zhang Wei immediately climbed up. I cannot afford to offend you. All right, I will go ask Deacon Guyang tomorrow. Pavo. Heh. Zhang Wei shamelessly left. Under the starlight outside, a group of Imperial Army cavalrymen were waiting for him. One of the Kiliarchs approached him and asked, Vice Commander, how was it? Did Commander you give you face? Zhang Wei turned around and glared at him. Commander, you and I have known each other for a long time and we have deep feelings for each other. We will solve our own problems. Why are you talking so much? What does it have to do with you? The Chiliarch fell silent. It seemed that Zhang Wei had been snubbed, and it was best not to provoke him. Otherwise, it would be bad if he exploded. Zhang Wei had a fiery temper, and the entire Imperial Army only gave face to Feng Jixing. After all, Feng Jixing had already stepped into the Holy King realm. Even 20 Zhang Weis would not be a match for him. Wei Chou strode into the tent, smiling. Commander, you've gone to bed early. Bai Yin will be on duty for the rest of the night, so you can sleep in peace. As for tomorrow's matters, we'll settle them tomorrow. Lin Muyu nodded and suddenly asked, Wei Chou, have you been busy with military affairs recently? It's all right. With General Sen and General Shui's help, I don't have to personally attend to all the affairs of the valiant Dragon Legion. Thus, I've been rather idle these days. That's good. Lin Muyu smiled. Since that's the case, I'll appoint you as the person in charge of the beast taming department. You'll be in charge of it. You've been in charge of it before, so you should know the pros and cons, right? Wei Chou cupped his fists respectfully. The beast taming department currently has at least 200 people. Most of them have cultivated the first 2 volumes of the beast taming art and confuse with spirit beasts. However, due to limited conditions, they can only tame low-level spirit beasts such as wolves, which are not very useful in battle. That's the problem you need to solve. Lin Muyu smiled. The spirit beasts of the beast taming department are too messy. They are not very useful in battle. Take the wolves for example. I think even a 3,000-year-old wolf would not be able to withstand an armor demon's axe, right? That's right. The wolf's defense is too weak. It's not suitable as a beast of war. In my opinion, there's a lake in the depths of the dragon-seeking forest called the Cloud Dragon Lake. A type of land tortoise lives on the lakeside of the Cloud Dragon Lake called the Blazing Black Tortoise. The shell of the Blazing Black Tortoise is extremely hard. Even white diamond arrows can't penetrate it. The Blazing Black Tortoise that has lived for more than 3,000 years will have matured shells. Perhaps a cultivator with a higher cultivation in the beast taming department can tame a Blazing Black Tortoise to aid in battle. Sure. Lin Muyu nodded. I'll leave the taming of the Blazing Black Tortoise to you. Inform me before you set off. I'll go with everyone. We must minimize casualties. Yes, I understand. The next morning, the bell in the Divine Temple reverberated. It was the bell for the Divine Temple's staff to assemble in the morning. More than 1,000 Divine Temple staff stood in great numbers in the huge Divine Temple square. Lin Muyu, Xian Yuan Hong, and other important higher-ups were also present. Gu Yang held a scroll in his hand and read out the rules of the martial virtues after the establishment of the Martial Virtue Hall. There were a total of 8 virtues: benevolence, loyalty, stopping war, facing the abyss, bravery, self-improvement, openness, and humility. Lin Muyu was very satisfied with the 8 great martial virtues. Getting Gu Yang to write the martial virtues was indeed the right choice. With the establishment of the Martial Virtue Hall, the 8 great martial virtues would be like waves that would constantly affect the empire's territory outside of Lanyan City. After that, Gu Yang naturally became the first deacon of the Martial Virtue Hall. This was also the result of Lin Muyu's recommendation. After all, if Gu Yang could not do it, he could only do it. To be honest, Lin Muyu did not have much time to waste in the Martial Virtue Hall. In the afternoon, he brought Bai Yin and the other guards to the Zine Flower Merchant Guild. Naturally, it was still Jin Xiaotang who personally welcomed him. Today, Jin Xiaotang was wearing a light pink dress. She was delicate and beautiful, and her youthful appearance was truly enchanting. She gracefully walked forward and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, what do you want to buy from the Merchant Guild today?" Lin Muyu calculated the items in the Qingkuan pouch and said, "Give me the gems I need for the quarter mark. Also, prepare some dark steel and low-grade dark gold powder." Jin Xiaotang was extremely intelligent and had already guessed some clues. She held onto Lin Muyu's hand and walked out of the small hall. She moved closer to his ear and said, "Indeed, a superb weapon that has both the inscription and the heavenly book will definitely have a sky-high price." Lin Muyu could not help but be speechless. Jin Xiaotang was really too smart. She had guessed his thoughts just like that. That's right. Ever since the heavenly book reappeared, the sales of weapons in the major merchant guilds had reached a bottleneck. The price could no longer go up. Spiritual and mystical grade weapons had basically become weapon embryos. Most of the prices had dropped by at least 50%. At this time, the most sought-after weapons were spiritual and mystical grade weapons that had the inscription or the heavenly book. Therefore, this time, Lin Muyu wanted to make use of his free time to forge in batches. Although the probability of a book being formed was relatively low, once it was formed, it would be a priceless treasure. After more than 2 hours, they had bought a large amount of dark steel, spirit stones, and gems. They were transported back with the help of the horse carriages from the Longdan army camp. In the afternoon, they closed the door with a bang and instructed Bai Yin and Wei Chou not to see anyone else. They were to focus on forging weapons. From afternoon to night, a total of 24 longswords were forged. All of them were mystical grade weapons. Basically, they were mystical grade level 7 to mystical grade level 2. These longswords were highly sought after treasures 5 years ago. However, the market was becoming more and more mature now. Blacksmiths from all over the world had gathered in Lanyan City. In addition, Su Muyun's subordinates, Yuchi Tian, Yuchi Yen, and other members of the Yuchi family were constantly producing mystical grade weapons. Therefore, the market for mystical grade weapons had been hyped up. It was no longer as popular as before. The 24 longswords did not have names. They only had numbers 1 to 24. This was Lin Muyu's plan to mass-produce them. Clang. Longsword number 1 was placed on the table. Lin Muyu picked up the carving knife and began to inscribe on the hilt of the sword. Level 5 Dragon Slaying Seal could provide the weapon with the effect of a dragon power attack. This was also the seal with the highest success rate for Lin Muyu's current engraving skills. However, it was extremely difficult to inscribe the complicated dragon slaying seal on the small hilt of the sword. Not long after, the sword was embedded into the dragon heart stone. However, the blade was dull and the engraving was actually broken. Lin Muyu calmed himself down and put the broken sword aside. He could use it as the embryo of the heavenly book later to inscribe again. It was all right. He could not explode in his mind. He could take it slow. As a result, the engraving of the next few weapons was successful. The moment they were embedded into the dragon heart stone, they bloomed with the radiance of the dragon-slaying seal. When it was late at night, Lin Muyu's forehead was already covered with sweat. He had successfully engraved 11 of the 24 longswords. This success rate was already considered to be at the peak. Phew! He took a deep breath, put down the carving knife, picked up the spiritual pen, and filled it with sufficient low-grade dark gold powder. It was time to inscribe the heavenly book. The surface area of the sword was considered relatively large. Lin Muyu did not pursue to inscribe a complete heavenly book. Instead, he wanted to inscribe a simplified version of the heavenly book. The heavenly book that was extracted from the heavenly book was of the fire element. After all, the fire element was a pure attack type. The dragon-slaying seal was also an attack type. Moreover, it was engraved on a long sword. Swoosh! Sword number 1 actually became a book. The orange light was very intense. It was a top-grade spiritual book of the law of fire. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a little excited. He continued to write with sword number 2. It was a pity that he had written it badly. He did not comprehend his state of mind. This sword could only become a semi-finished embryo with the engraving but not the heavenly book. He was not discouraged and continued to write. However, the engravings were ruined one by one. Either it became a book but not engraved, or it was engraved but not a book. Lin Muyu's mood gradually worsened. There was a sense of frustration that came from nowhere. It was too hopeless. All the way until it was almost dawn, the long sword in his hand suddenly burst out with a bright light. A pale yellow light soared into the sky. It was a low-grade heavenly book. Furthermore, this sword with serial number 21 already had a successful god-slaying seal. Just when Lin Muyu was about to lose all hope, the first successful work was born. This sword was also the only one among the 24 longswords that had the blessing of 2 divine powers. It was originally a mystic rank 1 top-grade embryo and had a complete god-slaying seal. Then, it activated the heaven and earth energy of the low-grade heavenly book. This sword might be the unparalleled sword in the world, writes Chapter 542. Heavenly Book Pavilion, Elders Conference. Bada. Ouyang Ping took a puff from his pipe, his face was cloudy. Lu Yen squinted his eyes and said, "Everyone, please say something. What kind of extraordinary person is behind the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce to be proficient in both engraving techniques and the heavenly book technique?" Ji Lin remained silent. After a long while, he looked at Qin Yong and said, "Prince Zhong, you are the uncle of Her Highness the Empress. Perhaps you can ask Her Highness the Empress to issue an edict and invite the extraordinary person behind the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce out." Qin Yong couldn't help but laugh. "Lord Manager, please don't joke around. This is an extraordinary person who can write a top-grade earth book. Adding on the current possibility, he might also be proficient in engraving techniques. If such an extraordinary person really joins the Heavenly Book Pavilion, do you think Her Highness will promote him to be the new manager? After all, whoever can write a stronger heavenly book will be promoted to manager. This is the agreement when the Heavenly Book Pavilion was established." Ji Lin once again fell into silence. He naturally wasn't willing to give up his position as the number 1 person in the Heavenly Book Pavilion. However, no one in the Empire was able to write a heavenly book technique, and that extraordinary person might be the first person to do so. If that was the case, his position as the manager of the Heavenly Book Pavilion would be in jeopardy. Perhaps, letting this extraordinary person remain a mystery was the best outcome. Beside Lu Yen, Lu Feng cupped his fists and said, "Manager Ji Lin, no matter what, we should think of a way. Otherwise, the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce's limelight will be completely above our Heavenly Book Pavilion. Where will we put our face?" Ji Lin said, "Young Master Lu Feng is right. I heard that young Master Lu Feng is trying to write a top-grade earth book, but I don't know if it's true." Lu Feng frowned. "Junior's writing strength is insufficient. I am truly ashamed that I can't write a top-grade earth book." Lu Ying, who was beside him, said, "Then why don't we go find Jean Xiaotang and ask her who this person is? It's too boring to keep guessing here." Lu Yen hurriedly said, "Don't speak nonsense." Ji Lin took a deep breath, stretched his body, and said, "Everyone, from tomorrow onwards, I will go into seclusion to comprehend the heavenly book mantra. The matters of the Heavenly Book Pavilion will be jointly managed by Prince Zhong, Lord Lu Yen, and Lord Ouyang Ping. I hope that everyone can work together and make the Heavenly Book Pavilion the pride of the Empire's Heavenly Book world. Yes, Lord Steward. In Eagle Nest Mountain, the interior of the mountain was completely dark. In the darkness, one could vaguely see a man with an imposing figure sitting cross-legged on a rock. Streams of dough cheese slowly revolved around his body. The flowing dough cheese seeped into his skin and formed clouds that lingered around him in the blink of an eye. Layers of golden energy pulsated on the surface of his skin. It was an indestructible energy that originated from the unbreakable Vajra profound energy. He slowly let out a sigh of relief and entered a very peaceful state of mind. Suddenly, his spiritual perception flew out of his body and soared into the sky. Beyond the 9 heavens, the sky was filled with golden radiance and dense divine power. Between the spirit mountains, there were images of various Buddhas. The Buddhas did not speak and only put their palms together. In the next moment, Sanskrit chants appeared beside his ears. It was boundlessly auspicious. Feng Jixing couldn't help but lie down in the sky and accept the baptism of the Sanskrit chants. Every inch of his body was bathed in this extremely comfortable Buddhist profound energy. Immortal Sanskrit chants. Finally, Feng Jixing cultivated the Vajra protection divine art to the 6th stage. He could clearly feel the Vajra protection chi on the surface of his body becoming more and more tyrannical and solid. He had already achieved initial success in this divine art. At the very least, he no longer needed to rely on battle armor to protect himself. Moreover, when he was fighting against a powerhouse of the same level, relying on battle armor alone was far from enough. This was also one of the reasons why Feng Jixing was so focused on cultivating the Vajra protection divine art. His cultivation of the Vajra protection divine art had already surpassed that of Lin Muyu. The reason was simple: focus. During this period of time, Feng Jixing had only cultivated the Vajra protection divine art, while Lin Muyu had to cultivate the star arts and dragon forging bone remnant scroll. Knock knock. The sound of knocking came from the stone door. Who is it? Feng Jixing slowly opened his eyes. His body was still in a cross-legged position. The strong muscles on his arms and chest were glistening with sweat. Unknowingly, he was already drenched in sweat. Subordinate Luo Yu requests to see the commander. Come in. Creak. The stone door opened and Luo Yu walked in with a torch. She respectfully knelt on one knee and said, "Commander, you have been cultivating in the mountain for a full 17 days. I know. Has you come back?" He came back a few days ago. Luo Yu said, "General Feng, there was a letter from Lingdong province. They found new movements of the demon race." What happened to the demon race? Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and asked. Someone saw Qian Feng commanding the newly formed Armor Demon Legion to train. He prepared heavy battle shields and sharp steel spears for the armor demons. The battle formation they are practicing is somewhat similar to the Qiankuan battle method used by General Feng. What? Feng Jixing gasped in disbelief and said, Qian Feng has only seen the Qiankuan battle method once. Has he learned it? I don't know. But I do know that Qian Feng has begun to forge armors for the armor demons to protect the heart, head and other fatal parts of the armor demons. Moreover, a batch of armor demons is sent to Qian Feng almost every day. Our scouts exchanged their lives for the intelligence. Qian Feng has rebuilt at least 50,000 armor demons. A centipede dies but doesn't fall down. Feng Jixing slowly murmured and said, Have you and His Highness received this news? Not yet. Go and tell them immediately that the Empire must strengthen the training of the soldiers. The demon race has not given up their intention to offend us. In addition, immediately send out an order to strengthen the defense of the steel wall. No one knows when the demon race will launch the next attack. Yes, subordinate understands. Does General Feng still want to continue training? Yes. Feng Jixing nodded his head. I want to master the 7th layer of the diamond body protection in one go before I come out. You go first. Discuss any news regarding the demon race with IU. When I'm not around, he will be able to take charge. 2 days later, the Zine Flower Auction House had a great harvest. The 24 long swords that Lin Muyu forged were all sold. Among them, the most perfect one was sold at a price of 12.4 million Jin coins. The buyer was the Qian family, one of the tycoons in Lanyan City. The young master of the Qian family, Qian Lian, was also a practitioner. He had stepped into the heaven realm at a young age. Although he used Dream Return to Zenith as a help, he was still one of the best among the young generation. His father had high hopes for him, so he spent a lot of money to buy this perfect long sword. In the back hall of the Chamber of Commerce, Lin Muyu was counting the money happily. She had earned nearly 20 million Jin coins from this auction. The tight funds for the development of Magic Crystal Cannon could be relieved for a while. Just as she was feeling happy, someone outside asked to see her. It was Wei Chou. "Commander, we're ready. We'll set off tomorrow for the Cloud Dragon Lake in the depths of the Dragon Forest. Do you have time to go with us?" Wei Chou asked carefully. "Yes, of course." "Prepare the weapons and food." "Yes." After that, they went to the Zetian Palace to bid farewell to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. Lin Muyu had to go to the Zetian Palace to prepare for the next war. In the Cloud Refining Mountain Range in the Cloud Refining Province, the endless mountains reached the clouds as if they were going to pierce through the sky. There was not a single blade of grass growing on the mountain range. It had become a snowy region. It was said that the peak of the Cloud Refining Mountain Range was the place closest to the sky in the human world. However, it was also the most dangerous region. The cold wind was biting cold, and a whirlwind could tear an ordinary person's body into pieces. However, in this deserted place, a figure dashed up the steep cliff. It was a young man holding a spear. Faint flames lingered around his feet. It was the king's fighting flame. He was wearing leather boots. Every time his boots touched the wall, a purple dragon claw would appear and pierce into the rock stratum. This was also the reason why he could walk on the steep cliff as if it was flat ground. The spear rested on his shoulder, and he was carrying the corpse of a muntjac. There was a hint of joy on his face. After a few leaps, he landed on the snowy land at the peak of the Cloud Refining Mountain Range. His figure flashed like lightning into a cave in the snowy region. "Master, master." He smiled happily and said, "Look, master, what did I catch?" Inside the cave, an old man with white hair and beard slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the proud expression on his face, the old man couldn't help but smile. "Exit, you went hunting again?" The young man called Exen, or knelt on one knee and said, "Luo Exen greets master. There is no food in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range, so I wanted to catch some game for master." The old man laughed. "I have been cultivating for thousands of years. I am about to see through the secrets of heaven and step into the godly state, so I don't care about food. Exit. You have already achieved some success in your studies. You have stepped into the Holy King state at the age of 29. How many people in this world can do that? It is time to go down the mountain." Luo Exen was stunned. "Master, I'm not going anywhere." "Nonsense." The old man's expression became stern. "Remember, you are the descendant of the famous General Luo Tonghai. The blood of a godly general flows in your body. Moreover, you have awakened your first-grade martial spirit, the purple dragon, more than 10 years ago. You were born extraordinary, so how can you stay in the wilderness with me? Go find your foster father." "My foster father?" Luo Exen was stunned. "Yes, when you were 7 years old, a general took you in as his foster son. Have you forgotten? Foster father Luo Exen's face was full of displeasure. "Foster father took me in as his son, but he never came to see me. He must have forgotten about me." "How can that be? Your foster father is a feudal lord who controls half the country. Moreover, the Cloud Refining Mountain Range is a dangerous place. How could he have come here without your cultivation? Go, find Duke Yun Su Muyun in the imperial capital. Be filial to him and be loyal to the empire. Your master will ascend to the godly world in 3 days. That's it. Take care of yourself. Leave the Cloud Refining Mountain Range tonight." "Yes, master." Luo Exin knelt on the ground with tears streaming down her face. When will disciple be able to see Master again after you ascend? The old man smiled. When you ascend to the heavenly world, Master will come looking for you. Cultivate well in the mortal world. Yes, Master. Chapter 543. 3 days later, in the depths of the dragon-seeking forest, a group of people traversed through the barren forest in winter. Lin Muyu had brought along 200 divine temple staff and 300 elites from the Dragon Courage Legion, a total of 500 people. Even if they encountered any powerful spirit beasts, they would still be able to contend against them. However, it was not to the extent that they would appear redundant due to having too many people. Rustle, rustle, the hooves of the horses stepped on the weeds. Wei Chou held onto the hilt of his sword as he urged his horse to move alongside Lin Muyu. It's already the 3rd day, and we still haven't found the Cloud Dragon Lake on the map. Sir, could it be that our map is wrong? It's not possible. Lin Muyu shook her head. But the dragon-seeking forest stretches for thousands of miles. It's normal for the map to have an error. I dare to confirm that the dragon-seeking lake is within 5 miles of where I am. Search slowly, and we will find it eventually. Yes. Wei Chou nodded. Sir, although we have brought sufficient rations, we are running out of fodder for the warhorses. If this continues, we can only graze the warhorses in the forest at night to replenish their energy. Lin Muyu responded. However, snowflakes drifted down in the cold wind. Due to the low temperature, the snowflakes did not melt for a long time on her robes. Lin Muyu sighed and said helplessly, "It's going to snow again. I hope the snow isn't too heavy this time, or else it will be troublesome if the mountain is sealed off by the heavy snow." Yes. Wei Chou looked around and said, "Men, release the swift wolves and find the location of the Cloud Dragon Lake." A few of the temple staff members who had tamed the swift wolves nodded their heads and whistled. Immediately, the swift wolves turned into gray traces and disappeared into the forest. Wei Chou looked around cautiously and said, "Everyone, be on your guard. An extremely powerful spirit beast could appear here at any time. Don't be careless and lose your life here." "Yes, Deputy Commander." Lin Muyu focused her mind and suddenly grasped the hilt of her sword with one hand. She ordered, "Everyone, spread out. Something is coming." Everyone started to scatter, while Lin Muyu leapt off her Snowstrider warhorse's back. She stepped on her domain cyclone and paused for a moment in the air. The spirit pulse technique clearly showed that there was a powerful energy rushing towards them. It was underground, and everyone could faintly feel the ground trembling, as if an earthquake was about to happen. "Be careful." Wei Chou took out the demon-devouring bow and knocked a white diamond arrow on the bowstring. Lin Muyu opened her left hand in the air and released her 5 fingers. A golden light shone brightly and she shouted, "Come out, you evil creature." Buzz, buzz, buzz. Golden light soared into the sky as the 7 luminaries' celestial gourd activated its profound energy. Golden gourd vines rolled around underground, and in the next moment, a huge dragon snake rolled out of the ground. It was a 10,000-year-old earth-drilling dragon snake with 10 golden patterns. The dragon snake's head was bound by the gourd vines, and poisonous thorns pierced into its scales, causing it to bleed profusely. The earth-drilling dragon snake originally wanted to ambush the human army and feast on them. It also wanted to prepare for the lack of food in the coming winter and spring. However, it did not expect to encounter a killing god like Lin Muyu. It was destined that it would not be able to return. The dragon serpent roared angrily and suddenly opened its mouth to spit out a mouthful of flames towards the dozens of people from the holy temple in the distance. These people from the holy temple all had unique skills. Their true qi and do qi shone brightly, and their martial spirits emerged from their bodies. They were about to enter a defensive state, but with their strength, they might not be able to withstand the breath of the dragon serpent. Bang! Lin Muyu landed heavily on the ground and opened her left hand. The golden dragon blood shield flew up and blocked the breath of the dragon serpent. Without waiting for the dragon serpent to resist, Lin Muyu pounced forward and unsheathed the star's sword. Her two martial spirits fused instantly, and the huge treasure sword shone brightly as it slashed at the head of the dragon serpent. The dragon serpent's protective spiritual energy was instantly shattered. In the next moment, Lin Muyu's simple and clean slash directly chopped off the head of the dragon serpent. The remaining half of the dragon serpent's body twisted crazily in the soil, and the upper half was spewing out blood. It twisted violently, but it was only a matter of time before it died. Wei Chou and Bai Yin looked at each other. They knew that Lin Muyu was powerful, but they did not know that the commander of the Dragon Courage Legion could kill a 10,000-year-old spirit beast in one move. The star's sword was unsheathed, and Lin Muyu walked forward. She opened her palm slightly, and the exposed spirit stones of the dragon serpent were sucked into her palm. The flames washed away the snake's blood, and she casually threw the spirit stones into her universe bag. Lin Muyu smiled and said, "The earth-drilling dragon serpent is of the fire attribute, so its meat is not bad. Cut a piece of the dragon serpent's meat and bring it with you to cook at night. It can keep you warm." Everyone nodded and pulled out their weapons. In the blink of an eye, the upper half of the dragon serpent's body was reduced to a pile of bones. At this time, Lin Muyu suddenly became vigilant. She couldn't help but whisper, "Be careful, something is coming." Everyone get off your horses and form a circle with the horses in the middle. Prepare to face the enemy with the universe tactics. Yes. This group of people were well trained and quickly obeyed the order. In the blink of an eye, the 500 people formed a small universe tactics formation in the open space of the forest. Shields, blades, and swords faced the outside. The archers retreated to the back, and the horses were protected in the middle. Everyone had a vigilant look on their faces. Wolf howls could be heard. As night fell, the most terrifying wolf pack in the dragon-seeking forest seemed to have come out to hunt. Swift wolf pack. Wei Chou gritted his teeth and said. Bai Yin squinted his eyes and said, "A swift wolf pack 800 miles deep in the dragon-seeking forest. Interesting. Perhaps there is already a 10,000-year-old wolf king as the leader?" You jinx. Wei Chou looked into the distance and saw a pack of swift wolves surging out of the forest. As expected, a wolf king with a total of 12 golden patterns on its head glared at the people in the forest. It bared its teeth, and a stream of mucus flowed down its teeth. This was actually a 12,000-year-old wolf king. Wind attribute spiritual stone, not bad. Lin Muyu thought differently from the rest. Wei Chou groaned inwardly and said, "Madam, this pack of swift wolves is probably more terrifying than any pack of swift wolves we have encountered before. The alpha wolf is 12,000 years old, while the second wolf and third wolf are 9,000 years old and 8,000 years old respectively. Most of the wolves have a lifespan of 5,000 years and above. This is too terrifying." Immediately, a gold star instructor from the Sanctum in the Universe Tactics formation shuddered. He looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Great Deacon, I'm afraid this pack of wolves is the legendary Wolf Emperor pack." Wolf Emperor pack? Lin Muyu was stunned. What does Wolf Emperor pack mean? I've only heard of weasels. The Gold Star instructor complained incessantly, the Wolf Emperor pack has existed in the history books for as long as 500 years. This pack of wolves is the fiercest and strongest pack of swift wolves in the entire dragon-seeking forest. This pack of wolves has always bullied the weak, and as long as they will appear as a pack. Over the past 500 years, at least 10 or more sanctuary powerhouses of the Empire have died under the sharp claws of this Wolf Emperor pack. Even sanctuary powerhouses are no match for this pack of wolves? Yes, this pack of wolves is very cunning. If they can win, they will fight. If they can't, they will leave. Under the wheel tactic, many sanctuary powerhouses have become delicious meals in their mouths. Fortunately, we have more people. Lin Muyu pulled out the star's sword again and said, "Prepare for battle. Prepare the white diamond arrows. Once we enter the shooting range, start shooting. I want to kill more than 100 of them before the wolves arrive." Snowflakes rustled and fell on everyone. In the distance, there was a rustling sound, and a dense pack of wolves emerged. Their lifespans ranged from 2,000 to 10,000 years. The sky darkened in the blink of an eye, and the pack of wolves roared and pounced on them. Swoosh! Wei Chao's arrow flew out and directly pierced through the throat of a 4,100-year-old swift wolf. With an "ao-ao" sound, the swift wolf fell to the ground and rolled far away, immediately dying. Good archery! Bai Yin could not help but smile. He immediately raised his hand and shot an arrow. The arrow disappeared into the forest. Bai Yin's archery skills were obviously not comparable to the art of stealing. Lin Muyu saw this and was determined to get her hands on the spirit stones of the leader wolf, the second wolf and the third wolf. It was rare to see a wind elemental spirit stone with a long lifespan. Once a wind elemental spirit stone was refined, it could greatly increase the speed of a sharp blade. It was extremely rare. The chieftain wolf roared. Its chest had been hit by 2 arrows from Wei Chou, and it was already bleeding. However, its vitality was very strong, and it still pounced on them. It opened its huge mouth, and a storm descended along with it. Oh no! Wei Chou turned pale with fright. However, Lin Muyu was much calmer. Her figure dashed forward like a bolt of lightning, and a circle of golden gourd walls surrounded her, protecting her body perfectly. The stars soared slashed down from the sky, and 5 mountains descend from the heavens appeared. Boom! The powerful astral energy dispersed the storm formed by the Wolf King. The star's sword landed directly on the Wolf King's head, and with a kacha sound, the skull was cut open. Woo! The Wolf King howled miserably. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful expert in this group of people? Its body fell to the ground under the power of the 5 mountains descend. With a miserable howl, it actually wanted to run away with its tail between its legs. Want to run? Pa! Lin Muyu laughed heartily and stomped on the ground. Pung, 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 3 gourd vines broke out from the ground and surrounded the Wolf King. Numerous golden god-binding chains surged out, and with it, piu, piu, piu sound, the Wolf King's body was pierced through. In an instant, fresh blood flowed out, and the Wolf King that roamed the depths of the dragon-seeking forest died on the spot. Ao, ao, the Wolf King howled, and its eyes were filled with ferocity. As soon as the Wolf King died, it immediately took the stance of ascending to the throne. At least 100 swift wolves pounced towards Lin Muyu. Lanyan City. Snowflakes floated in the sky above the city, seeping into the ground. In the darkness of the night, a figure walked straight towards the Cloud King's mansion. His leather boots left traces of snow on the ground. He carried an iron spear on his shoulder, and half of a badger's body was hanging on the other end. This badger's body had already been mostly eaten. Who are you? Don't you know that this is the Cloud King's mansion? A guard said in a cold voice. If you're just here to sell your prey, then leave. The Cloud King's mansion has no shortage of food. I'm not here to sell prey. I'm here to look for my godfather, Su Muyun. The young man raised his head. Under the leather cloak, a pair of clear eyes was like an inverted star. Chapter 544. Su Jun had been the captain of the Su Residence's guards for 7 years. He was well versed in martial arts and had reached the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm last year. Although his cultivation was not on par with the people in the Holy Temple and Zetian Palace, he was second to none in the Seven Seas Palace. His fists were extremely powerful, and he had once killed a 500-kilogram porcupine with 1 punch. That was why Su Muyun had taken a fancy to him. Among the 500 guards of the Seven Seas Palace, Su Jun's position was no different from that of a commander. It seemed that in the entire palace, other than the masters like Su Muyun, Su Yu, and Su Chang, Su Jun's position was the highest. However, Su Muyun thought that Su Jun was not talented enough to hold a military position, so he did not assign him military duties. Su Jun had a feeling that he was talented, and it was difficult for him to fulfill his ambitions. Naturally, his temper was not good. His Highness, the Cloud King's adopted son? Su Jun could not help but laugh out loud, and the dozens of guards behind him laughed as well. Looking at the newcomer, Su Jun raised his thick eyebrows and said, "How dare a peasant like you claim to be the adopted son of His Highness, the Cloud King? Do you know what happened to someone who claimed to be the butler's son last month? He was beaten so badly that his front teeth fell out. Boy, do you want to try my fist?" The young man looked straight into Su Jun's eyes and said, "If I challenge you and win, will I be allowed to see my adopted father, Su Muyun?" Su Jun's smile became even wider. "You're just a hunter and you want to challenge me? Haha, I'm afraid you're not strong enough. Forget it, it's rare that I, your grandfather, am in a good mood today. Then, let's have a few moves." Su Jun raised his hand and threw the sword in his hand to a guard behind him, and said, "All of you look carefully, see how your boss teaches this country bumpkin who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Go, sir." The group of guards raised their weapons and cheered loudly. Su Jun was unarmed. Both of his fists abruptly collided in front of his chest, and flames burst forth. He cultivated the law of fire, and with a ferocious punch, a fire wolf martial spirit appeared behind him, exuding an imposing aura. The young man couldn't help but smile. He raised his hand and threw the spear and the prey into the snow behind him, saying, "Since you're using fist techniques, then I'll use fist techniques to break you." "You're asking for a beating." Su Jun bellowed, and his iron fist was like a ferocious dragon emerging from the sea, heading straight for his opponent. The flame drew a mark in the night sky. The strength of this punch was no less than 1,000 jin. It was not something an ordinary person could block. Moreover, the fist was surrounded by the fire wolf martial spirit's gale. Just a blow from the gale would be fatal. However, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the mysterious youth merely raised his right palm and suddenly exerted force. Immediately, the roar of a dragon filled the air as a purple dragon spirit appeared behind him. His palm transformed into a dragon claw, and with a "pa" sound, he grabbed Su Jun's fist. With a sudden twist of his wrist, Su Jun fell to the ground along with his fist. Before Su Jun could land on the ground, the mysterious youth flew forward and lightly kicked out. Bang! The captain of the Yunzhong Palace's imperial bodyguard was sent flying along the snow, crashing heavily onto the stone steps. His face was a mess, and he struggled to get up in disbelief. Looking at the mysterious youth, his face was filled with astonishment. "Who are you?" "I've already said, I'm Su Muyun's adopted son. My name is Luo Xin," the youth said calmly. "Just you wait." Su Jun scrambled and rushed into the mansion. "What?" Su Muyun, who was having his dinner, was shocked. "You're saying that person's name is Luo Xin, and he defeated you in one move?" Su Jun covered the wound on his abdomen, and his face was filled with shame as he said, "Yes, he called himself Luo Xin, and said that he's your highness's adopted son, but I think he's just a hunter, and he used tricks to defeat me. Your highness, please don't be fooled by him." Su Muyun ignored him, and clapped his hands. "Luo Xin has become a talent. Luo Xin has finally become a talent." Su Yu, who was at the side, asked, "Father, who is Luo Xin?" "Yu, do you remember 22 years ago when I led an army to attack the rebels in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range? At that time, I got lost in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range, and I met a child. After asking around, I found out that he was the descendant of Luo Tonghai, the meritorious founding minister, so I took him as my adopted son. That child has been cultivating in the mountains, and now he has finally become a talent. Quick, come with me to see this younger brother of yours that you've never met before." "Yes." When Su Muyun and Su Yu arrived outside the palace, they saw Luo Xin standing alone in the snow. However, the snow that was flying in the air couldn't land on him, as it was pushed away by an invisible force. He was circulating his qi to ward off the cold. Su Muyun, who was dressed in a luxurious black robe embroidered with gold patterns, walked out with the help of Su Yu. He looked straight at Luo Xin and said excitedly, "Xin, you've finally grown up." Luo Xin was stunned. "You are?" "I'm your adoptive father, Su Muyun." Su Muyun walked forward shakily, but he was no longer as tall as he was when he was young. He used his trembling hands to measure himself, and said with a smile, Back then, you were only this tall. Adoptive father's frame has also shrunk because of old age. Sigh, I've grown old. Luo Exin was extremely excited. She held onto Su Muyun's arms and said, "You're really my adoptive father, General Su Muyun?" "That's me." "How is your master?" "Master is about to ascend to the heavenly realm, so he sent me to assist him." "Oh, that's great." Luo Exin immediately knelt down and said, "Luo Exin greets adoptive father." "Good. Quickly get up." Su Muyun was so excited that his whole body trembled and said, "Exin, quickly come and meet your sister. Her name is Suyu. From now on, you two can call each other brother and sister, right?" Luo Exin greets Sister Suyu. "Good brother." Suyu was beaming with joy. Ever since Su Qin died in battle, she hadn't had a brother for a long time. Now that the heavens had gifted her such a handsome and powerful brother, how could she not be happy? Su Muyun patted Luo Exin's shoulder, and his face was filled with a doting smile, and said, "Luo Exin, I heard that you defeated my guard captain, Su Jun. Is that true?" "Guard captain?" Luo Exin was stunned, and said with a smile, "Adoptive father, your guard captain is really weak." Su Jun was immediately embarrassed, but he couldn't refute it. Luo Exin's status was now completely above his, and the difference between a master and a servant was like heaven and earth. "Are you really that powerful?" Su Muyun smiled slightly and said, "Come, why don't you show your strength to adoptive father?" "All right, adoptive father, please take a few steps back." Suyu supported Su Muyun and took a few steps back, letting Luo Exin stand alone in the open space in front of the mansion. After slowly closing his eyes, the snowflakes around Luo Exin moved without any wind, and slowly rose up, spinning into a snowstorm. At the same time, Luo Exin's body surface was enshrouded with a fiery red Do-Chi, which was the king's Do-Chi of the Holy King realm. Hong! A dragon roared, and a bright purple divine dragon martial soul soared into the sky, circling around Luo Exin. For a moment, an invisible pressure fell, and the stone bricks in front of the mansion cracked, and a powerful destructive force was raging. Su Yu's small mouth opened wide and said, "King's Do-Chi. He is actually a powerhouse of the Holy King level, my god." Su Muyun's face was full of joy and said, "Enough, Luo Exin, it's enough, adoptive father knows your strength." Luo Exin smiled slightly, and the surrounding cyclone disappeared in an instant, and the snowflakes fell to the ground, and said, "Adoptive father, is Luo Exin strong enough to be a general?" "Yes, I can be." Su Muyun beamed. "With a little more training, I can be the main general at the front lines." "Luo Exin, you haven't eaten yet, right? Quick, come in with me and your sister. Today is our family's first reunion meal." Luo Exin was moved, and tears welled up in his eyes. Since young, he had followed his master to cultivate alone. When he heard the word family, he felt like he was reborn. "Yes, adoptive father." In the dragon-seeking forest, the attack of the wolf pack was getting more and more violent. Kacha! The star's sword flashed, and the second wolf was killed. The flames in Lin Muyu's palms spun rapidly, and she suddenly blasted the dark energy of the chaotic life on the third wolf. In the midst of the howling, the third wolf's body was actually split into two by the flames, and was killed. At this point, the top 3 leaders of this wolf pack had been killed by Lin Muyu. "Master, we can't hold on anymore, the wolf pack is getting more and more numerous, we will definitely lose if we keep defending." Wei Chou shouted from behind. That's right, the wolf pack did not only rely on strength, but also numbers. At this time, the forest in front was already densely packed with swift wolves, and at least 1,000 swift wolves were charging over. "It's okay." Lin Muyu shook his palm, and took out a shining wrist guard from his Jianghu bag. It was the supreme-grade Earth Book Mystic Steel wrist guard that he used to win the championship in Iha country. An earthy yellow light soared into the sky, and the power of heaven and earth was instantly activated. In the next moment, countless flames poured down from the sky, as if the whole world was illuminated. This fiery red magma-like fire rain fell on the wolf pack, and its lethality and destructive power were extremely strong. Immediately, the wolf pack howled incessantly, and the area within a few hundred meters was turned into a sea of fire. Wolves were afraid of fire, and the supreme-grade Earth Book's main purpose was to intimidate them. In the blink of an eye, the pack of swift wolves surrounding the Longdan army camp all ran away with their tails between their legs. Those who did not escape could only become sacrifices for the supreme-grade Earth Book with the words, "Fire God Apocalypse," written on it. Not long after, at least 200 swift wolves had been burned to death by the supreme-grade Earth Book, and the smell of burnt meat was already wafting out. The fire rain had been burning for nearly 5 minutes, and it was starting to die down. "Oh my God," Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and the rest finally recovered from the shock. Wei Chou said, "Master, we can go look for the Cloud Dragon Lake now." "Don't be in such a hurry." Lin Muyu laughed and pointed at the corpses of the swift wolves in front of him. "Don't waste it, dig out all the spiritual stones of the swift wolves. I want them all, don't waste a single one." "Yes." These were all the raw materials for the weapon embryo, how could they waste them? After all, Lin Ruoji was a good child who knew how to run a household. Chapter 545. Oh, while the group was moving, a swift wolf was limping towards them from afar. It was howling in pain, as though it was injured by something. Its neck had a special collar made by Temple. It was a swift wolf that was tamed by Temple. "Little Gray, come here." A young staff member hurriedly got off his horse and hugged the swift wolf affectionately. The swift wolf whimpered in its master's ear for a while, as if it had been wronged. Not long after, the staff member turned to Lin Muyu and cupped his fists. "Reporting to Commander, this subordinate swift wolf has found the Cloud Dragon Lake. It's about 7 kilometers north of us, but there are many bloodthirsty tigers living around the lake, so we need to be careful." Understood. Lin Muyu looked at the swift wolf's injuries. Its hind legs were covered in blood, so it must have been injured by the bloodthirsty tiger. However, the bloodthirsty tiger had not been able to kill the swift wolf that had been scouting ahead. This meant that the bloodthirsty tiger was not that strong, at most about 10,000 years old. "Turn north. Everyone be careful. Do not let your weapons leave your hands." "Yes, Commander." They were already deep in the dragon-seeking forest, so encountering 10,000-year-old spirit beasts was a common occurrence. Furthermore, it was said that the Cloud Dragon Lake contained an extremely rich spiritual energy. Many spirit beasts lived underwater, making it even more dangerous. Looking at the drifting snow and the dark night, Wei Chou cupped his fists. "My lord, our vision is already very blurry. Perhaps we should set up camp here tonight and search for the Cloud Dragon Lake tomorrow morning. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight the bloodthirsty tigers at night." "That's fine. Set up camp." Wei Chou waved his arm, and everyone dismounted from their horses, set up tents, and started a fire to cook. In fact, many of them could no longer endure the bitter cold of the wilderness. If they were to starve, not many of them would be able to keep their spirits up. Lin Muyu cooked a pot of swan meat for herself and Wei Chou and ate it. Then she used the Clear Heart incantation to remove the heat poison for Wei Chou. She then sat cross-legged in the tent and operated the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll. She tempered the Do Qi in her meridians and the strength of her Qi Si. Wei Chou cultivated for a while at the side. Looking at the faintly discernible Do Qi flames around Lin Muyu, he couldn't help but say, when Lord Commander first came to Lanyan City, she was only at the Earth Realm. In just a few years, she actually stepped into the second layer of Sage Realm. She really is a peerless genius. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. "If you have something to say, just say it, you brat." Wei Chou smiled awkwardly, cupped his fists, and respectfully said, "Wei Chou has no great ambitions, but I also hope to cultivate to the same level as Lord Commander. I want to serve the Empire loyally. However, because of my status, Wei Chou doesn't dare to overstep my authority. So, I ask for Lord Commander's advice. Do you know why my cultivation speed is faster than others? This subordinate doesn't know, because of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll." "Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll?" Wei Chou was startled. That's right. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and patiently explained, although the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll is only an incomplete scroll, the mental cultivation method can remold the blood vessels and continuously temper the Qi-Si and the true Qi and Do-Qi in the Qi-Si. It can expand the capacity of the Qi-Si, increase the cultivation realm, and cleanse the marrow. It can make one's cultivation completely new. However, the requirements are very high. What requirements? Wei Chou asked. The bone of a true dragon is required to temper the blood vessels. Lin Muyu frowned, thinking back to the pain of assimilating the piece of true dragon bone Qin Yin had given her. She simply didn't want to go through it again. She raised her head to look at Wei Chou's ardent eyes, and couldn't help but smile, saying, logically speaking, the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll is not something ordinary people can cultivate, but I've been cultivating it for so many years, and have a different understanding of this mental cultivation method. I'm currently trying to rewrite the first and second volumes of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll so that ordinary people can also cultivate it. Not to mention remold the blood vessels, but at least cleanse the marrow is not a problem, and it can also greatly increase the speed of cultivation. Wei Chou was overjoyed, saying, "Milord, can you teach it to Wei Chou?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile, patting his shoulder, saying, "You, Xin Shui, Feng Shi, and the others are all people closest to me. Naturally, I will teach it to you. Don't worry, perhaps in the future, the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll will become a common mental cultivation method for the martial artists of the Empire." That's great, this subordinate thanks the general in advance. Wei Chou was especially excited, his heart filled with wild joy. If it really was as Lin Muyu said, then there was hope for him to step into the Saint Realm, and even if he cultivated bitterly for the rest of his life, he might be able to step into the legendary divine realm. Those ancient legends couldn't compare to might be his, and this was the dream of every martial cultivator. That night, Lin Muyu wrote down an improved and simplified version of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll on the parchment, but she didn't seem very satisfied and needed to slowly improve it. So she didn't give it to Wei Chou, hugging the parchment in her bosom and going to sleep. Of course, at this moment, Lin Muyu would never have thought that a simple thought of hers would make him a grandmaster of this generation on this continent, an existence on the level of martial god that everyone praised. The next morning, when he woke up early, the snow had yet to stop, and there was a vast expanse of whiteness everywhere. Wei Chou had already cooked meat soup outside the tent. He brought a bowl in and said with a smile, "Commander, it's time for breakfast." Lin Muyu chewed his teeth, brushed his teeth, and washed his face with the water that melted from the snow. He only felt that his face was cold. Good heavens, using ice water to wash his face in the cold winter was really a severe test for his skin. When he walked out of the tent, he only felt that the layer of frost on his face was falling off piece by piece. The weather was really too cold. Outside, a group of soldiers from the Longdan army camp and the staff of the Divine Sanctum were shivering, their faces pale. Wei Chou said, "Sir, the temperature today is at least 10 degrees lower than yesterday. Looking at the weather, it's likely that the dragon forest will be sealed off by the heavy snow. Although spring is coming, we should prepare some rations to survive the winter. Maybe we can only return to Lanyan City when the snow melts in spring. Do we still have the messenger bird we brought with us? Yes, send a letter to His Highness. Just say that we might be sealed off in the mountains by the heavy snow, and tell His Highness not to worry about us." Lin Muyu flipped onto the horse, looked at everyone and said, "If you're full, break camp and set off. The real battle begins now." Everyone saluted in unison, then packed up their equipment and mounted their horses. Snowflakes fell on his shoulders, lapels, and armor. Lin Muyu did not circulate his battle armor to resist the cold. This seemed to be a habit that he had developed. He wanted to preserve his strength as much as possible. In a place like the Dragon Forest, no one knew what would happen in the next moment. Even though Lin Muyu had the Spirit Meridian technique, he did not dare to be too careless. The group traveled through the forest and mountain ranges. It had only been snowing for a day and a night, but the snow was already 40 centimeters deep. If it continued to snow for another 4 or 5 days, the the snow would most likely reach a depth of 2 meters. Normal people would not be able to traverse through the snow, and the entire forest would also be covered in snow. That would be the legendary snow-sealing mountain. Lin Muyu's heart was pounding as she looked at the vast expanse of white snow. It appeared that she really would not be able to find the flaming black tortoise. In such frigid weather, the tortoises had most likely already gone into hibernation in their caves, right? After traveling for around 4 to 5 kilometers, a tiger's roar rang out in the distance. Sure enough, it was a 9,200-year-old bloodthirsty tiger with fiery red fur all over its body. Flames were swirling around its paws, and it was lying on top of a massive rock on the mountain range. It was glaring at Lin Muyu and the others from afar, looking as if it were going to pounce down at any moment. "They're finally here." A faint smile appeared on Lin Muyu's face. Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, "Milord, leave this bloodthirsty tiger to us. We can't let Milord fight all the time, or else we'll become useless people." "Alright, but you guys have to be careful." "Don't worry, Milord." Wei Chou nodded with a smile, then looked at Bai Yin and said, "Take our men and get ready to go." "Alright." The two of them led a few dozen men and charged forward along the mountain path. Wei Chou held his longbow and pulled back the bowstring. His martial soul began to glow, and the arrowhead of the white drill arrow actually let out a buzzing sound. This was the vibration technique that Wei Chou had learned. By infusing his martial soul into the arrow would spiral and shoot, greatly increasing the destructive power of the arrowhead. Wei Chou had once pierced through the bodies of 3 armor demons with a single arrow. His arm strength and archery skills were not just for show. It was also because of his unparalleled archery skills that Wei Chou's position in the talented Longdan army camp had never fallen. With a sharp whistling sound, the arrow spun through the air. The bloodthirsty tiger couldn't react in time and let out a roar as the arrow pierced through its astral energy barrier, piercing its left eye and causing blood to spurt out. In its rage, the bloodthirsty tiger ignored the pain and charged down the hill. Wei Chou shot another arrow, blinding the other eye as well. He shouted, "Bai Yin, it's your turn now." Bai Yin replied, "Don't worry." With that, Bai Yin silently used turtle breathing, and his aura magically disappeared from the range of Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique. The bloodthirsty tiger had been blinded, so it could only rely on its opponent's aura to attack. However, Bai Yin's aura had completely disappeared under turtle breathing, leaving no trace behind. "Noisy!" Wei Chou shouted. A dozen of the Longdan army camp's elite soldiers drew their weapons and struck them against their shields. The noise made it even more difficult for the bloodthirsty tiger to determine Bai Yin's position. Clang! The moment he unsheathed his sword, Bai Yin stabbed it into the bloodthirsty tiger's jaw. However, he didn't even have time to draw his sword. The bloodthirsty tiger roared and opened its mouth, spitting out a mouthful of flames. Bai Yin's movement technique was simply too fast. His entire body was like a loach as he slid across the snow. In the distance, Wei Chou shot out 3 more arrows, each one piercing into the bloodthirsty tiger's vitals. This bloodthirsty tiger, which was almost 10,000 years old, was originally a tyrant in this territory. However, under the attacks of these cunning humans, it was unable to retaliate at all. Bai Yin retreat. The corner of Wei Chou's mouth curled up. "Just wait until it bleeds to death." Russell, Bai Yin didn't reply, and Taksha left. Not long after, the bloodthirsty tiger unleashed a barrage of flames, but it was unable to kill anyone. Finally, it let out a miserable howl and fell to the ground. Fresh blood seeped into the snow. It had died a humiliating death. Chapter 546. "Milord, what do you think of our battle tactics?" Wei Chou asked with a slightly smug smile. Lin Muyu nodded happily. Good. If you can cooperate like this in battle, it won't be difficult for you to kill a saint. Work hard." "Yes, milord." It was true that 2 heavenly realm cultivators had easily taken care of a nearly 10,000-year-old bloodthirsty tiger. This was too shocking, But Wei Chou and Bai Yin had done it, and that was because they had fully utilized their advantages. Wei Chou's arm strength and archery, while Bai Yin's turtle breathing technique hid his aura. As long as these two advantages were fully utilized, the bloodthirsty tiger's death was inevitable. After digging out the 9,200-year-old fire-type spirit stone, Lin Muyu tossed it into her cosmos sack and said, "Let's continue in search of the Cloud Dragon Lake." "Yes, milord." As they moved forward, they encountered another 7,400-year-old bloodthirsty tiger, which was also taken care of by Wei Chou and Bai Yin. However, when they encountered a third bloodthirsty tiger, a 1,700-year-old one, Wei Chou and Bai Yin did not attack it. Instead, they used Lin Muyu's gourd vines to capture it. Then, a staff member of the Holy Temple with moderate cultivation used the beast-taming art to fuse with it. The bloodthirsty tiger was an overlord-level spirit beast that comprehended the law of fire. It was also a very precious spirit pet, especially one that was easily tamed at such a young age. It was practically a treasure. As the beast-taming art written by Lin Muyu slowly spread, those with decent cultivation in the imperial capital could basically fuse with a spirit beast. Everyone called it a spirit pet, and the scions of the nobility naturally began to compare the excellence of their spirit pets for fun. As a result, the business of spirit pets in the various merchant guilds became especially popular. Many fearless mercenaries also entered the Dragon Search Forest to hunt spirit beasts. Every day, there would be an endless stream of mercenaries who would tie up spirit beasts in cages and send them into the city. The horse's hooves left footprints in the snow as Lin Muyu urged her horse forward slowly. Bai Yin frowned and said, "What's going on?" Logically speaking, we should have already reached Cloud Dragon Lake. In front of them was a vast expanse of white flatland. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and dismounted from the horse. She quickly wiped the snow off the ground with her hands. When she wiped it clean, she discovered that there was actually a layer of ice underneath the snow. "We're already on the Cloud Dragon Lake," Wei Chou said after being stunned for a while. Bai Yin said, "Then, where is that blazing black tortoise?" Logically speaking, the blazing black tortoise should be on the shore of the Cloud Dragon Lake. Damn it, could it be that the blazing black tortoise is already extinct? Then we really came for nothing. Don't be discouraged. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "Let's go back. We seem to have gone too far." Riding on Taksha's back, Lin Muyu closed his eyes and slowly extended his spirit pulse technique. However, he still could not find any traces of the blazing black tortoises. He frowned and could not figure it out. He clenched his fist and immediately, a wisp of golden divine power surged into his Ihai. It was Fushi's divine power. Using Fushi's divine power as the source of power, he activated the Spirit Pulse technique to probe again. This time, the Spirit Pulse technique's insight seemed to have increased by a few orders of magnitude. He could even detect the auras of insects, snakes, and rats underground. At the same time, deep underground on the shore of the Cloud Dragon Lake, Lin Muyu sensed that there was already fire energy resting at a depth of nearly 10 meters underground. Found it. He opened his eyes confidently and pointed his sword straight at a spot dozens of meters in front of him. He said, "Men, dig from here. About 10 meters away, we will be able to find the hibernating blazing black tortoise." "Sir." A group of soldiers waved their shovels excitedly and started digging. As the soil flew, the pit became deeper and deeper. Meanwhile, the fire aura was getting stronger. Lin Muyu held his star's sword and stood guard at the side. He could not let the soldiers who were digging the pit suffer any losses. After waiting for a while, there was a sudden clang. A soldier's shovel broke into two. It seemed like he had dug up something very hard. It was something that could break steel. It was extraordinarily hard. "Be careful. Move away," Lin Muyu said loudly. "Yes." Everyone picked up their shovels and climbed out of the pit. Lin Muyu raised her hand to summon the 7 luminaries' celestial gourd. Numerous gourd vines surged out of the ground and lifted up the hibernating big fellow. It was a flaming black tortoise with a diameter of 2 meters. The flaming black tortoise's shell was in the shape of a sheet on its back. It could be bent, and when it coiled up, it looked like a huge fire lizard. Swish, swish, it slowly opened its eyes from hibernation. When it saw Lin Muyu and the others, it immediately became violent. It roared angrily and the shell on its back stood up. Flames surged and swept the gourd vines toward Lin Muyu. At this time, Lin Muyu also saw it clearly. It was a 4,700-year-old blazing black tortoise. It could be considered a cub. "Commander, be careful." "It's fine." Lin Muyu laughed and raised her hand. The fiery Red King's combat flame danced and pushed forward. Suddenly, there was a bang, and the blazing black tortoise was forced to take a few steps back. Its curled-up body also slowly spread out. It lay on the ground and yelled at Lin Muyu. It seemed to be very angry. However, more and more golden gourd vines appeared. Lin Muyu's invisible domain also gradually descended and suppressed the little guy's anger. A 4,700-year-old black tortoise. Whoever has the confidence to tame it can come and try. "Let me try." In the crowd, a strong man in his 40s walked over with a sword in his hand. With a low shout, the spiritual power of the beast-taming tactics surged out of Ehai and began to communicate with the black tortoise. His body was enshrouded with a faint fighting spirit. He was a strong man in the heaven realm, a gold star instructor of the holy temple. Not long after, beads of sweat appeared on his bald head. Lin Muyu said, "If you can't do it, don't force yourself." He shook his head and closed his eyes. "Commander, let me try again." But suddenly, the gold star instructor groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood turned into a blood mist and shrouded the head of the blazing black tortoise. Was this the legendary blood contract? Lin Muyu couldn't help laughing, but she could clearly feel that the violent mood of the black tortoise was slowly calming down. Soon after, the gold star instructor opened his eyes and reached out to touch the head of the black tortoise. He said with a smile, "Little guy, follow me from now on. I promise you will have enough to eat and drink." The psychic fusion was successful. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be overjoyed. Not bad. The gold star instructor was also overjoyed. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for giving me such an opportunity, Commander." Lin Muyu nodded and pointed not far away. "There's another one there. Keep digging and there are blazing black tortoises there too. Don't be tired, keep digging." Everyone was beaming with joy. Now, they could basically confirm that this trip to the Dragon Forest was not a waste. At the same time, Lingnan's Iha country, by Ling City's main hall. Qin Yi wore a black robe embroidered with dark golden dragon patterns. It was a dragon robe. No one knew when he had gotten used to wearing a dragon robe. Long Qianlin, Jiyao, Qin Huan, and the other generals stood on both sides. The civil and military officials were extremely respectful. Qin Yi slowly raised his arm and said with a smile, "Come, invite the fire dance deity king for an audience." The eunuch outside the hall said loudly, "Commander invites the fire dance deity king into the hall." However, there was no sound from outside. Instead, a crack in the air in the hall was torn open by a purple light. A beautiful woman walked out barefoot from the crack. Her beautiful face carried a disdainful smile. She wore a light muslin dress and slowly raised her snow-white arm. She bowed in the air and said with a smile, "This little girl, Ouyang Yen, pays respect to Commander." Qin Yi quickly got down from the dragon throne and cupped his fists, saying, "Fire Dance Deity King is the deity of the heaven realm. She stands above all things in the mortal world. There's no need to be so courteous. Men, prepare a seat for Fire Dance Deity King." A few guards carried a golden seat and placed it under the king's step closest to the dragon throne. Qin Yi very respectfully waved his hand and said with a smile, "Fire Dance Deity King, please take a seat." "Commander is too courteous." Ouyang Yen did not take a seat. Instead, she stepped on the air and walked towards Qin Yi. Every step she took in the air created a flame ripple, as graceful and magical as the water of a fairy. She walked straight into the main hall, her feet lightly landing on the armrest of the dragon throne. Her delicate body took advantage of this and lay on the back of the dragon throne like a soft spirit snake. The light gauze on her body flowed down her beautiful body like water. She smiled and said, "It's still more comfortable here." Qin Yi's expression was extremely ugly. He turned to look at Ouyang Yen and took several steps back. He cupped his fists and said, "Today, I've seen Fire Dance Deity King's beauty. You're truly the most beautiful woman in the world. Lord Fire Dance Deity King has descended upon the mortal world and brought glory to the three realms. You're truly a blessing to the three realms." Below the king's step, Ji Yao's face was filled with anger. His hand grasped the hilt of his sword and he said in a low voice, "How disrespectful this woman is." Long Qianlin quickly pressed down on Ji Yao's palm. His eyes were filled with fierceness as he said indifferently, "Commander Ji, do you want to die?" Ji Yao was stunned. He saw Ouyang Yen shooting him a gaze filled with killing intent. This gaze sent a chill down his spine. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He could not say a word. Hee. Ouyang Yen suddenly smiled sweetly. Her body flashed and landed on the seat that was prepared for her. Her figure gracefully landed on the seat. Auspicious clouds appeared around her, making her look like a fairy. She said, "Thank you for such courtesy, Commander." Qin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He cupped his fists and said, "Lord Fire Dance Deity is too courteous. This is what we from the mortal world should do. I, Qin Yi, have a presumptuous request. I hope Lord Fire Dance Deity will not refuse." "Oh, what presumptuous request?" Ouyang Yen crossed one of her long legs and asked with a smile. Qin Yi cupped his fists and said, "The southern ridges Iha country is filled with outstanding talents. The land is fertile and the world is beautiful. The common people hope that the heaven world will have the blessing of a great deity. Therefore, I hope that Lord Fire Dance Deity will not look down on the position of Iha country's imperial preceptor." "Imperial preceptor?" Ouyang Yen smiled. "Doesn't the imperial preceptor already have someone?" "Luolan." Qin Yi's body trembled. A trace of uneasiness flashed across his face. Senior Immortal Luolan has been staying in the Seven World Palaces for a long time. She does not care about worldly affairs. I hope that Divine King Fire Dance Deity will not hesitate to be the great imperial preceptor of Iha country. From now on, every temple in Iha country will worship Divine King Fire Dance Deity Ouyang Yen. The incense will not be cut off. Is that so? Ouyang Yen suddenly left her seat and appeared in front of Qin Yi at lightning speed. Her pretty face was only a few centimeters away from Qin Yi's old face. She looked at Qin Yi with a smile and said, "I'm not Luolan. I don't need that money, that useless worship and empty reputation. I only want all the spiritual beasts and spiritual stones of your Iha country." All the spiritual stones? Qin Yi was stunned. After a while, he took a step back and cupped his fists. "I will definitely strictly order the Iha country to pay all the spiritual stones to the imperial preceptor." Ouyang Yen smiled. "That's right. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.